Tēnā tātou, welcome everyone. Welcome back to the third session for this afternoon today. I'm going to explain that this meeting is being recorded and will be live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel. Also, the health and safety rules and regulations. If you can see the screen, it's on there. Otherwise, for those who can't, I'll read that. In the case of a fire and an emergency, on hearing the alarm, please leave the site immediately by the nearest fire exit. Evacuate to the assembly area, the clock tower, Te Marae o Hine, the square. Health and safety, smoking is prohibited within any council public entrance, building or site. A defibrillator is located outside the customer services on the ground floor. And please report any near miss or incidents to the committee administrator, who is sitting to my right, Hannah. Thank you, Hannah. Also, for convenience sake, I noticed that earlier on some people were a bit wanting to go to the toilet area. It's just straight out there, and the woman to the left and the gentleman to the right. I'm now going to ask, are there any apologies from councillors for this session? No, that's fantastic. We have Councillor Hapeta and Councillor Meehan online. Ngā mihi to both of you. Thank you. And we're going to begin with the hearing of submissions on the long-term plan. Just before we do that, declarations of interest. Yes, Councillor Zeblin. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I have got a declaration of interest for submission 864.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Ka pai. So we will move into the hearing of the submissions on the long-term plan and the waste minimisation and management plan. Just for your noting, councillors, that the first two submissions will be merged. They have the opportunity, both are going to contribute, and it's highly likely it will be within the 20-minute, the two 10-minute times. And speaking with the government manager, we're fine with that to go. So with that, I'd like to call William of North Street Development Limited and Hannah. Thank you. And Hannah and William, if you push the right-hand side button on your device, that amplifies it. Thank you. Okay. Can I just add, before we begin in earnest, to everyone, we're really stretched for time. We're delighted to have so many submissions and people come forward and wanting to speak. However, we're going to stick to a tight 10-minute ruling. If you finish before that, we'll have the opportunity to allow councillors to ask questions. The questions will be put to the submitters, and once we hit that 10-minute mark, we're finished. But with the two of you combined, that's 20 minutes max you have. Thank you both.
Good afternoon. Tēnā koutou. Thank you for the opportunity to present the submission on behalf of North Street Development Limited regarding your long-term plan. I'll limit my submission to comments in relation to www.pncc.gov.nz Plan Change F. I'm William Wallace, the Managing Director and one-third owner of North Street Development Limited. With me is my sister Hannah Wallace, a Director and one-third owner. Not here are Pip and Ben Baxendine. They are the other one-third owner of the company, and Pip is a Director. Pip is also my daughter, Ben my son-in-law. Hopefully they're out there in the ether and have been able to come onto the live stream. My comments this afternoon are specifically related to Palmerston North City Council's proposal as it stood in 2021 to rezone parts of Ashurst from rural to residential, specifically North Street. A little background. In October 2021, I became aware that a 2-hectare property at 117 North Street was on the market and was proposed to be rezoned residential in 2022. The marketing memorandum, which I've got here, bore this out and had pages that were directly downloaded from Palmerston North City Council's plans for the area. I didn't take this entirely at face value. My due diligence led me to discussions with council staff, specifically Victoria Edmonds and Michael Doonden. These conversations and council publications gave us the clear impression that it was a matter of when, not if, the zoning change would take place. We were initially told that the final technical data re flooding and stormwater would be made public in April 2022, with rezoning scheduled to take place later in the year. At the same time as this was going ahead, we had conversations with a large local house and land package company, and it was also their clear understanding from Palmerston North City Council that rezoning was highly likely to go ahead, and on the basis of that we entered into a contract with them to buy and sell sections. I also discussed this with Kevin Judd from Resident Surveyors, and he was of a similar opinion. Having completed our due diligence and being satisfied that said rezoning was highly likely to go ahead in late 2022, we purchased the property in December 2021 and took possession in late January 2022. We paid a substantial premium for the property, well in excess of $500,000 over what a similar lifestyle block not scheduled for rezoning might fetch. Bailey's Real Estate, who marketed the property, informed us post-purchase that there were 3 very similar priced offers from other parties, and this was also later confirmed to us by the vendor. Obviously, these groups had all done their due diligence and come to similar conclusions to ours. Since April 2022, we have faced delay after delay in the rezoning process. It's our understanding that Horizons Regional Council's rejection of a 1 in 100-year flood plan is the major cause of this. It beggars belief that Horizons did not convey their requirement for a 1 in 200-year flood plan to Palmerston North City Council before Palmerston North City Council commissioned the 1 in 100-year plan. Council staff have also told us that a lack of suitably qualified staff on this project has led to delays. Here we are, 2 years later, still no flood plan available on the 15th of May 2024 as I talk to you. On the 5th of April 2024, I finally received some of the information that I'd been seeking when Kevin Judd forwarded me the recently released Palmerston North City Council Future Development Plan. Reading through this plan, I was absolutely shocked at what was proposed for Ashurst and in particular North Street. It was now proposed that the other Ashurst areas would be rezoned in a 3 to 10 year time frame and North Street in 10 years, if at all. And then, only when some yet to be determined private equity partnership could be created to pay for the still to be released 1 in 200 year flood plan and the required mitigation work. It wasn't even as if the goalpost had moved, the entire game had been changed. A particularly disturbing aspect of this entire process is that sitting here before you today in May 2024, I'm still not privy to the flood plan report that all these changes are based on. I've been told it'll be available in the next 2 months. I've been told that before. It leaves me sitting here before you having to submit an objection to you, the critical detail of which is still unavailable to me. It is a totally unacceptable position to be placed in. We formed North Street Development Limited, as the name suggests, to provide high-quality residential sections for Palmerston North City's ever-increasing population. We're a small, family-based company, not some far-off ivory tower developer. I live in Palmerston North. My son-in-law, daughter and their young family live in Bunnythorpe. My sister has a lifelong affiliation with the area. Hannah and I invested the vast proportion of our life savings in this project. Pip and Ben mortgaged their Bunnythorpe home to the maximum to do the same. We have taken out a substantial mortgage for the balance. I say these things not in an effort to gain your sympathy, but to give you an idea of who we are and what we have at stake here. We have acted in good faith at all times. I strongly urge the Palmerston North City Council to review their proposed plan changes as they relate to Ashurst rezoning, to find a way to honour the commitments it has made in 2021-2022 via its own publications and through council staff liaisons. Although it might seem like it in my submission, I'm not looking to lay blame here or find fault with Palmerston North City Council. Personally, I found this a very difficult submission to write. I imagine it's been difficult to hear. We, North Street Development, seek a way forward out of this situation with you. We ask that Palmerston North City Council adheres to its stated intentions and its aims as laid out in Ashurst Plan Change F 2021 in as quick a time frame as possible. Thank you for listening to me. Ngā mihi.
Tēnā koe, William, and we're just going to carry on rolling this over, so Hannah will continue the talk on this as well. These are submissions numbers 1127 and 1126. Thank you, Hannah.
Sorry. First of all, I apologise because some of this will be a bit repetitious, but hopefully I can get through it quickly. As William said, we're a family-owned company which purchased land with a view to developing a substantial number of residential sections. Before purchase, our due diligence work with council staff, including written information provided by council, showed the area we were looking at purchasing was, quote, a preferred residential growth area, one of 4 sites proposed to be rezoned by the council from rural to residential. We must emphasise that at no time before purchase or in the months following was there any red flag raised by council suggesting that there would be significant delays in the work needed to finalise the rezoning. Excuse me. We were then told council was researching and establishing any flood risk to the area and that the flood plan would be ready by April 22. That plan, indeed any information about any flood risk and any potential impact on this rezoning work, has failed to materialise. Certainly, it's not been provided to us as landowners and stakeholders 2 years later. And now, after this totally unexpected and unflagged delay, we also find out from the published 10-year plan that the North Street area has been placed on what we can only see as a back burner of PNCC development plans. The block is now likely to be developed not in the immediate future, but from what we can tell from the available information in a much longer term 7 to 10 year time frame. And in addition, it is the only block of the 4 development areas to now be reconsidered as to whether to be rezoned at all. None of these developments were in any way flagged as possibilities to us by council prior to our purchase of the property. Clearly, if they had been, we would not have bought in this so-called preferred residential growth area. The loss of the ability to progress this residential development site in any timely, meaningful way is significant to our small family-owned development company. We are now faced with either waiting for up to 10 years for rezoning, possibly more, or selling the property under the current limitations, which would mean a loss well in excess of $500,000. In late 2022, we also came to understand that the Manawatu Regional Council had objected to the flood plan and required more investigation. We were not told this by PNCC, but by other contacts in the industry, and were completely blindsided by it. At time of submitting, over 2 years later, this flood assessment, as my brother has said, is still not available to us, the landowners, which means we are forced to make our submission without knowing the details of the new flood plan. We also want it noted that whatever is contained in that flood plan, what we know as owners in North Street, is that last year, during and after the 2 biggest rain and flood events of the last couple of decades, and I'm referring, of course, to Cyclone Gabrielle and the Auckland floods, during those weather events, our property in North Street was unaffected. It was not flooded. It may not be science, but it's a fact. We entered into our purchase on the understanding that the block would be rezoned. Developments like ours, of course, are not without risk, but we had every reason to believe that we'd mitigated that risk, limited it to a worst-case scenario of maybe having to wait a couple of years for rezoning. Cities and regions that want to be vibrant and go ahead and exciting places to live need people like us willing to believe in a vision and to invest in it. Our company wanted to be part of what looked like an essential housing development proposal in a city in an area which is home to two of three of our directors. There was a very personal commitment to this project, and we continue to be committed to making positive progress and to trying to find a genuine way forward. What we've experienced to date is a lot of delays and a lot of unanswered questions. What we want is to start having some conversations. This is the first time that we've had the chance to sit in the same room as people who have some part in the decision-making process, and we're very happy to be here and to have this opportunity. We believe council should acknowledge the essential unfairness of the situation with our property, to not renege on commitments made and instead to give prompt attention to the urgent residential rezoning of North Street. Thank you for your time and for your attention. Ngā mihi koutou.
Tēnā koe, Hannah, to both you and William, much appreciated. I see we've got a few councillors who have questions, and just a reminder to the councillors that your questions are directly to the submitters only. Thank you. Councillor Dennison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just I take the point around the flood information not being available, but have you considered advancing your development under a private plan change?
We have. We view that as an option for down the track if this does not go, if we do not find a way to work through this with council. I would add to that given our understanding that both regional council and local iwi have substantial reservations about the North Street block, that private plan change will be difficult to get through. But yes, the answer is yes, we have. It will be substantially more expensive than a zoning change. There are inherent costs in a private plan change, but yet the simple answer is yes, we have.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you both.
Thank you. The Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. William, Hannah, thank you for bringing this forward. It's a pity we didn't, as governors, we didn't really know anything about this, other than, and look, we really do want family-owned developers to be doing this sort of work. I almost think you may be in the wrong council room. As you know, Horizons haven't put anything in their LTP around flood protection and national, nothing. And our council submitted to them strongly on the, strongly around the advice of putting something in that LTP. I wrote the submission with officers. And the flooding assessment and consents, a lot of that actually sits, or the advice sits with them. Our hands are somewhat tied. And I'd like Councillor Dennison, I apologise if you obviously haven't got information, and you should have got information. But just to give you our own Tamakuku Terrace subdivision was delayed 2 years because of council's change and the regional council's change in direction and government legislation around fresh water. So I do think there is some.
Excuse me, Your Worship, can I please ask that you direct a question to the
Well,
submitters?
I'm sorry, it's more of a
Thank
comment
you.
as well. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I'd probably, if I could just reply to that, we have been unable to light a fire under anyone, basically, to try and progress us getting this information. So if you haven't been able to do it, then imagine what it's been like for us.
Any further questions? Hannah and William, thank you very much on behalf of all of us for coming and making your submissions. We will be having deliberations on the 29th and the 30th of this month, just so that you're aware of that. And we will be taking what you've said into account as well. So thank you once again. Kia ora.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in closing, we want to sit down and have conversations with council staff and try and find a way through this process, not read in the paper what's happening.
We
Thank you
truly
for your time.
appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm sure we'll be taking that up. Thank you. I'd now like to call upon Hannah, who is speaking to submission number. It helps that I move my glasses a bit. For submission 428, I'd like to call upon Dale. Thank you. Welcome, Dale.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to my submission. I've been approached by Palmerston North City Council about the addition of the Stats New Zealand rural settlement boundary to maps and plans, so it seems like this might be progressing. Thank you. At a recent community meeting that was open to the public and which officers of Palmerston North City Council attended and contributed to, it was mentioned a number of times that communication is much improved. However, it became evident at that meeting that there is still a way to go. There was no copies of the consultation document brought to the meeting for people to take away with them, and it was realised that the planned indicative business case for the rural freight ring road had been left off the list of programs affecting or including Bunnythorpe that was provided at the drop-in session the week before, because the consultation document had not yet been publicly released. The community plan in year one needs to be a genuine combined effort, advertised well with all those in attendance committed to what is best for the Bunnythorpe community. I look forward to being involved in a process which places that at the forefront of meetings and discussions. I request that PNCC produce a statistical analysis of the makeup of Bunnythorpe with input from the community about its coverage to inform planning. I believe the 2023 census results will be available at the end of this month, and that PNCC support the establishment of the Greater Bunnythorpe Community Board, which was the subject of the appeal to the Local Government Commission. Because, following the boundary change, there has been the PNITI plan, the Accelerate 25 plan, the Future Development Strategy, and now Te o Tanganui Master Plan, continuing to propose the same ring road route going straight through Bunnythorpe, and additional community severance to the one we already deal with, the railway line. Following each submission to long-term plans and to a regional land transport plan since this ring road was first proposed in 2010, we have been told that there will be consultation with the community prior to a final ring road route being confirmed. 14 long years later, within which new plan after new plan has been being produced, continuing to show the same ring road route. I can assure you that the people of Bunnythorpe have not had any input into any of these plans. I know that you have heard otherwise, as have we. And when you hear statements like, this planning is the result of huge investment, including ongoing stakeholder consultation, and has been being flagged to the community for many years, please don't interpret that to mean that the Bunnythorpe community, who will be the most affected by the current ring road route, has had any input. We have not. My understanding of the word stakeholder is any person, community or organisation that has an interest in or is affected by decisions. Bunnythorpe residents have an interest, will be affected, and have a right to genuine, meaningful, open-minded consultation about the route. I know that the Ministry of Education has been included as a stakeholder in the Future Development Strategy, but has only submitted on being included in discussions around new schools that might be needed, not the impacts of this planning on Bunnythorpe School. Specific consultation with Bunnythorpe will rectify this, as will a community board. In the meantime, the heavy traffic needs to be stopped from going through our village and be made to stick to the state highway network until it is as close as is possible to its destination in Palmerston North, and to return to the state highway network as closely as possible to the business that it has left. It is completely unreasonable to allow these huge truck and trailer units to use the roads within our settlement when they should be using the state highway routes designed for them. and it's not a fix of the problem to upgrade the roads and bridges within our settlement to state highway standard in order to accommodate them. This will cause insurmountable increased community severance and social cohesion issues. This brings me to Program 2359, the Bunnythorpe Bridge replacements of the Mungolney Stream and Jacks Creek on Kairinga-Bunnythorpe Road. As I have mentioned in my submission, these bridges do not need to be upgraded to heavy combination vehicle standard. These bridges are within our settlement boundary and are perfectly adequate. The timing of these replacements should not be prior to and separated from the planning for the ring road, which we are continually told is just a line on a map and that the final ring road route won't be known until consultation is undertaken. There is no other way to interpret the timing of these bridge replacements other than it is to enable heavy vehicles to continue to use the roads within our settlement and an underhand attempt to enhance the appeal of this route prior to genuine, meaningful, open-minded consultation taking place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dale. Any questions from councillors? Yes, Your Worship.
Kia ora, Dale, good to see you again. As of Monday, you are aware that we are doing the village plan, the wider sort of consultation with Bunnythorpe. It's in our LTP.
Yes, I understand that there's a village plan taking place, but how we feel about that planning is that that's planning for the village itself and won't be specific to the ring road consultation process, which we've been told we will have an opportunity to be involved with, have input to.
Yeah, look, I'm pretty sure it will, but that's fine. But just making sure you're aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Dale. Just wanted to inquire around the community board comments that you made and just would like to understand, in your view, what powers you think that community board should have if it were to be set up?
What I don't understand a lot about a community board. What I do understand, it would have more of a partnership place with council rather than what we have had, which is more like a master-servant relationship when we have no formal body.
Right. Thank you. Madam Chair.
Thank you. With no further questions from the councillors, I'd like to say thank you very much, Dale, for your submission. And on the 29th and 30th of May, we'll be doing our deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd now like to call upon those who have submitted submission number 773. That is Brett and Donna. Please come to the table. Thank you. Welcome to the two of you, and when you're ready, feel free to begin.
Thank you for the opportunity to come here and put our case forward. Donna and I were just talking about basically summarising this, because this to us is a real serious issue that we have in Bunnythorpe. And obviously we put on the submissions that the water pump station is relying on manual staff to come over. If we have a power cut, we have no water. If we have a fire in the Bunnythorpe community and the power's off, we have no way of putting out fire. The water pump has to be manually turned on. This has been going on since 2018. We had a meeting, we've been having quarterly meetings for the last 12 months. At the last meeting, they said the parts are there to make the pump system automatic, so it will switch on if the power does go off, but that's still, the last comment we had was those parts are sort of sitting waiting to be fitted. Like, to me, this is pretty serious in the fact that we could have loss of life because of the issue of what's happening. If the power goes off in the middle of the night, we're not aware of it, we've got no one ringing the council to advise them, and we have a major catastrophe out there, then there's no support. We have no water. The water pressure is basically very low. Donna, she's actually with the fire brigade as well, and a volunteer fireman, and Donna can probably add some more information to it.
So as part of our training, we generally go around and flush out all the hydrants and check the pressures and things like this. There was a fire, we're actually assuming everyone's read all this document. So there was actually a fire at the Glaxo building, and I was part of the crew that participated in that incident. And en route, our chief or our officer in charge had automatically escalated the alarm because we knew of the water issues in Bunnythorpe and that there was insufficient supply. We all know the locations of where our hydrants are, and just as a FYI, the more deliveries you lay out, you get more friction loss in regards to what you actually get at the branch. So part of that call was we actually escalated it so we had more appliances available, so if we needed water, we could actually send them off to go and get it. And this is part and parcel of the water pump issue at the Bunnythorpe water station, because prior to that, we knew that there was an automated system, that if the power went off, the pump kicked in automatically. The pressure didn't drop, and so we always had water, so when we were undertaking drills, and that's part of our Monday night trainings, is to do drills around Bunnythorpe so we can actually keep an eye on the water issues. In the past, we've actually identified them, and as we've stated in our document in October 2018, our acting area commander at the time actually noted the lack of water when we were trying to run out 2 deliveries off the appliance. It's always been a concern to ours at the fire brigade, and we have brought it up with the council, and it has been noted in the quarterly meetings that they are saying they're fixing it. But the underlying issue is, and the reason why we're bringing it to your attention, is we actually want it, if it is still in the 10-year plan, because that does get pushed out, we actually want it brought to the forefront of the 10-year plan for the Bunnythorpe community. Because here in Palmerston North, if there's a fire, obviously you have water. If the pump goes out, if you have no power, you still have water. And yet in Bunnythorpe, if our power goes out, we have no water. And therefore that actually becomes an issue. So that's the reason why we're talking to the submission today.
And we think this should have priority over anything, because, as I said, there's life at risk if something does happen. And it's the delay in getting a water tanker to Bunnythorpe is eight minutes.
Yeah. So what happens is in Palmerston North, if we ask for a water tanker to be sent, which is our current requirements with the fire brigade, so as soon as there's a structure fire in Bunnythorpe, a tanker is automatically dispatched to Bunnythorpe to give us water. You could have, by the time they come from the Palmerston North Central, you've got like 5-6 minutes by the time they get to us. So in 3 minutes you can have a room that's fully involved, and we're trying to save savable houses and save savable lives. So yeah, we have contingencies in place, but we would like this brought to the forefront of the 10-year plan, that all the water systems in Bunnythorpe actually get improved urgently, especially when you're also looking at the ring road potential coming along, and also with new additional housing that you're looking at in the long-term plan. How can you have the long-term planning of housing if we don't have a water supply to actually make sure that we can actually remedy any issues that happen out there?
And like the water pump system is the priority, because, as I said, without that we don't have water. Recently we had a power cut, and not all of Bunnythorpe lost their power. We actually still had power, but we had no water. And that just highlights the fact that if that happens, and yeah, as I said, we'll struggle to put a fire out. So to me, it's crucial, and I think to me this should be a priority over anything that the council are looking at, because, as I said, we're talking sort of life and limb, what could happen if something goes wrong. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Brett and Donna. Just a question. Are you making that request on behalf of yourselves or the Bunnythorpe Community Committee?
We're actually doing it by ourselves.
Thank you.
But the Bunnythorpe community is also
Support it.
fully aware of it
Yes.
as well, and so is the fire station.
Yeah, we had a meeting last night, and they were sort of supporting it as well. So it's easier if we've got the more submissions we put in, rather than have one body doing the submission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to pass it over to Councillor Hancock. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Brett and Donna. You explained that reliance on a water tanker that's 6 minutes away. But in terms of the limitations of actually using a water tank, can you perhaps just explain that a little bit more in terms of?
How long will it last?
So generally a water tanker will, so you'll have the firefighting capacity of the truck that's there, which will be generally running out 2 to 3 deliveries. So if you've got a house fire, you'll generally at least have one, but if there's other exposures, you'll have another delivery actually trying to defend those exposures as well. That water tanker will actually just be filling the appliance so that we can undertake our firefighting capacities. So you might have 20,000 litres in there, and if we're drawing like, say, roughly 1,800 litres a minute, and that's what we would be requiring if we had 2 deliveries, 20,000 litres is not going to last long. So therefore what happens is you have additional appliances feeding that tanker to keep it full so that we can do our firefighting capabilities.
And correct me if I'm wrong, in a fire, a house can be destroyed in?
Oh, so a room can be what we deem a K99 in 3 minutes. So it can be started, and you've seen the adverts on TV, within 3 minutes that whole room can be fully involved.
So relying on a tanker that takes 8 minutes to come from Palmerston North is totally unacceptable.
Thank you, that's very helpful. And just, sorry, if I can just ask one other. So in terms of the water pressure, what are the implications for the domestic water supply for Bunnythorpe?
So currently, like, if we were to hook up the standpipe to the hydrant, we don't have the sufficient water capacity at the branch to actually do any firefighting. And it's really poor, and there's no pressure behind it at all, yeah, so.
And that is reducing as time goes on?
Yes, depending on where you are, we've had a report come back through the council that said the closer you are to the pump station, the better you are. So if you're in the middle of town, apparently that's no good. And yet in KB Road, that was reported by the council that they had actually excellent water supply, but that made me think that, and I haven't investigated this further, that it's actually reliant on the Roberts Line pumping station along there, and it's actually fed through there, and that's why they've got good water supply.
So Donna, if the power's off, does that mean there's no water at all for you guys to put a fire up?
If there's no power in Bunnythorpe and the pump station doesn't work, we don't have any water.
Okay, and that's
Great.
what we're highlighting.
Thank you, it's very clear, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Barrett, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks for the submission, and my question acknowledges that it's about Bunnythorpe, but Donna, I'm interested in your experience with the fire service, and is this something that is uniquely a Bunnythorpe problem, or are there other villages and outlying parts of our community that are similarly at risk?
I can't speak for the other areas. Because most of our firefighting is generally done, like if we've done anything, it's in Bunnythorpe or in Palmerston North. I know, for example, I was part of the crew that was actually at the Cloverleigh Tavern, and I saw what we did to the Palmerston North City Council pipes, and that was using the ladder truck to actually get the Cloverleigh fire under control. I do think that it probably is other issues in other areas. It would be interesting to see if Rongotia actually have the same problem and whether they've actually even highlighted it to you guys at all.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Brett and Donna, for making your submission. And as I'd mentioned earlier, in a fortnight's time, on the 29th and the 30th of May, the council will be making their deliberations. But we really appreciate you coming along. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just, I just want to check to see if Joe is in the house. Joe, who made submission number 494. No? Okay, we'll move on then. Could I please invite Wendy, who made submission 725, to come to the front? Thank you, Wendy. Thank you and welcome, and when you're ready, just start.
Good afternoon, councillors, mayor and councillors. Thank you for this opportunity to bring my concerns. Right, the emperor has no clothes, and I'm not afraid to say it. I am concerned about the draft plan for the following reasons. Number one, it appears that the whole draft plans are based on the premise of, I quote, 9,984 new dwellings by 2054 and or increased number of residents 100,000 and also been quoted 108,000. Yet, live births are down 3%, all-cause mortality up 14 to 17%, and the Government Department, New Zealand Stats, says we are experiencing the lowest natural growth in 80 years since World War II. The trend is set to continue, with Massey University consistently decreasing departments, courses and students, and the delay of the starting of the rail hub in Bunnythorpe. The increase of our population ageing with limited income says to me the figures used in the draft plan are obsolete. Building permits are down 30 to 50%, and the flow-on effect is trade suppliers and tradies are starting to experience redundancies. We will see an exodus of this workforce as they look for employment. Not to mention, many councils are actually laying off staff. So I just repeat, the reduction of people, not the increase. Number two, I am concerned that the draft plan is driven by the smart city concept, as already evidenced by Featherston Street and proposed upgrade to Botanical Road and Ruahine Street traffic safety and calming plans. If it was seriously about safety alone, it would have been smarter to widen the footpath to be dual carriageway with cyclists, but instead you have created massive congestion and delays. Recipients of our emergency services, fire, ambulance and police have not been considered, as the delay of only a few minutes can be the difference between life and death. I believe some of the recipients of these services would not consider their safety important. I wonder how many of you councillors and employees rode to work or took buses today. Why should you tell us to bike, walk or use public transport? People drive for all sorts of complex reasons. Number three, the smart city concept also drives the high-density housing infilling. I believe it was about 2 decades ago that we were dismantling high-density housing in Highbury because of the social problems it caused. There are plenty of studies that report the failure of these ideas and the social implications of herding people into small, confined spaces, even if they are bright and colourful. I'm also concerned that there doesn't seem to be provision for allotments or for gardening. I'll explain that later. Number four, I appreciate that the council has concerns regarding homelessness, but I feel we should not be duplicating the work of MASH, WINS, Mental Health Services, Emergency Housing and other groups that work in this area. The council is already investing large sums into social housing, new builds and subsidising these, so I do not support the 3-year pilot scheme at this time. I've personally housed some homeless people and their needs are complex and some do just not want to live in provided housing. Let's leave this problem to the experts and groups that already provide care, meals and support. Number five, I am surprised that most councillors are not familiar with the smart city concept, initially known as a 15-minute city, where everything is within 15 minutes walking distance and no one will own private cars. This concept drives all of our town planning and this draft plan. All councils in New Zealand have signed up to this plan and your mayor has attended discussions about this concept in Taiwan. The Smart City Plan comes directly from the UN Agenda 2030 and New Zealand is just one of many countries following this global agenda. But wait, there's more. After listening to Jim Quinn, Chief of Strategy, Auckland City Council, share the Smart City vision for Auckland on behalf of Auckland City on Auckland Conversations, he was discussing how our every move can be censored and this data stored, and I quote, he wasn't sure what the mountain of data would be used for, but was excited that sensors are relatively cheap and easy to install. Surveillance is a very key part of the Smart City Plan for lots of reasons, one being in Oxfordshire, England, to tax vehicles travelling without permits and over their allotted journeys by debiting their bank accounts directly. Number six, wastewater and sewage. I'm just really covering this quickly. Israel converts its wastewater and sewage into drinkable water. I believe this option needs to be visited, as would solve future water crisis and not require the 760 hectares of land or treating and putting in the water. So in summary, number one, the draft plan growth is based on obsolete figures, as I've said. Number two, Palmerston North is not a suburb of a large city, but services many satellite towns and rural areas, so the smart city concept is untenable for our rate-paying residents. Number three, high-density housing equals social problems and creates another problem with food security having no space to grow anything. Number four, increasing rates to support a homeless pilot scheme could well contribute to increasing homelessness as ratepayers are rated off their properties. Number 5, I challenge you to educate your councillors on the Smart City agenda and bring it into the public area and let the people speak. Number 6, there may be other options to deal with your wastewater and sewage, but the waste spending needs to be drastically reduced in line with inflation and the present economic climate. So as with my written submission, I do not support the majority of your planned expenditure, namely the 6 large capital expenditure, the homeless pilot scheme, traffic management of our internal arterial routes. Again, I say the emperor has no clothes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm going to pass it over now to Councillor Naylor for a question. Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Wendy. Just referring to your written submission and your suggestion to push those 6 projects that add up to 90 million out 3 to 6 years, and you also mentioned traffic projects. That's a small amount of about $1.5 billion worth of new projects. Do you have a view about the other projects that are in the plan?
Well, I do. Obviously, the wastewater, I'd like us to investigate lots more options. I'm sure there are lots more options available. Generally, I didn't actually get time to view. I'm really concerned about the money spent on the traffic calming and management when it could be utilised in other areas, i.e. fixing potholes and servicing other sorts of areas. So it was basically mostly the capital spending those extra capital items. They were just the particular ones I chose. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Wendy. Look, I'm no fan of Featherston Street, but I just want to understand when you say there's money in the budget for these smart city plans. I mean, I look, for example, there's only $80,000 a year in there for security cameras. Where are you seeing it that you believe we're doing this? Because as far as I can see, there's no money.
I said that's where the smart city, that's the whole smart city initiative and agenda. It's what comes next, what's already flowing. And I'm just taking it, like I said, observed from this, the chief strategist at Auckland City Council. So that's where they were planning. So the smart city, I understand that this council's signed up to, is an agenda. It's and there's steps. And some councils are further on in the steps. Some councils and places like Oxfordshire and England are well and truly far further on in these steps. They've already have limited areas that you can drive, limited times you can take your dairy out. So, it's steps, and we're probably a little bit at the start of those sort of steps. So that's I guess that's my concern. And the majority of people don't have an understanding of what the whole smart city agenda is and where it goes, what it's involved. And as we're seeing, Featherston Street is one really big concern.
But so do you see in the plan there is no money allocated for what you're describing? There's no plan in the next 10 years to do any of that work that you're talking about?
Sorry, that I'm talking about.
Yeah, where are you seeing the budgets?
Okay, it's rolling out in your, it's in High Density Council, High Density Building. That's a Smart City Agenda Initiative, and the High Density Infilling in the building. The traffic calming and management. I mean, why would you make a really busy road and then refine it, with the buses and the bikes and it just doesn't make no sense.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. With Councillor Zabellin, do you reckon it's a quick question? Here we go. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Wendy. We've got $296 million put aside for capital growth for expansion in housing, industrial growth, and that's infield and greenfield. Are you supportive of that or opposed to that? What's your thoughts on that?
I'm really concerned about like I said, the infilling, the style of it. It's very attractive, but it's the same, it's attractive building. There's no ability for people to grow, there's no space. I'm not sure, there's lots of social studies about infilling and having people in such confined spaces, and I'm concerned that I really, that all of this is designed around the premise that we're going to have this growth. I think that's what I said at the start. And I was saying, in fact, we're not, because the birth live rates are down, the mortality is up, we're at the lowest natural growth rate in 80 years since the war, and the trend is looked to continue. I think, all of this draft plan is based on this growth.
Thank you.
And it doesn't appear to be that way.
Wendy, we've reached the time limit, but thank you very much for your submission. And on the 29th and 30th of May, we'll do our deliberations. Thank you. Can I please ask that submitter number 864, Simon Ferry, please come to the table? Thank you. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you. Nā tangi te kākā, nā tangi te titi, nā tangi hoki ahau, tihau Māori ora. Firstly, thank you, councillors and officers, for what you do in the city. Yeah, it's not unappreciated or it doesn't go unnoticed, although I'm sure it feels that way sometimes. I am acutely aware that my opinions are made up of my opinions, and they are not based in fact, and I do not have the overview that you guys have. So what you get from me today is really just one citizen's perspective and my thoughts, and so really it is just kind of the vibe of the thing. I've got three main points that I want to discuss today about growth strategy. The other is about debt, and the other is about central government. This is a really small city. I've lived on 4 continents now, in some of the biggest cities in the world, and I love this city because it is small, and that is one of the great things about it. I don't support the concept of growth as a means of, a way of developing our economic well-being. I'm not opposed to growth. Growth has served us well as globally for a long time, but I kind of feel like it's maxing out. It's got the speed wobbles and it's losing its morality and its ethical underpinning. And what it really is leaving us with is greater and greater inequalities. And you can see that globally and nationally and also locally if we bother to see it. I feel like in most cases the active growth actually indeed puts more added pressure on the existing infrastructure and services that already are stretched. We hear about it every single day. So I'm asking you to adapt or think in a different way about this growth strategy and in favour of a different focus, a focus on resilience and a focus on community. I'd like to serve those people who are here and not those that we think might come some other time. My second point is related to debt, and I understand that borrowing is the accepted way to enable infrastructure spending. And incidentally, I noticed that the majority of the community projects are all bricks and mortar. That's what it feels like to me in some ways. They're all connected with a building or some sort of housing of some kind of organisation, and not an investment in the people and the personnel and the systems of what they offer. However, in relation to debt, I don't want to see my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren paying for infrastructure that will probably be almost obsolete by the time it's paid off. And I feel like there's a real risk of bankruptcy here. We're being asked to do ever-increasing plans, and I just don't think we can afford it. When I returned from overseas a few years ago, I really could feel in this country that we were living beyond our means. And really, I don't think as a general populace we had really come to terms with that. I don't think we'd even thought about it. And we constantly want more, but are not producing enough to actually sustain that. Thirdly is about central government. Many of the proposals that are coming through are due to directives from central government. Growth strategy, seismic limits, water standards, just a few for example. I'd like to see a greater pushback against these to central government. If these are directives from them and they're not funded, then we're kind of at the mercy of this 3-year political cycle. And I would like to see this council really be visionary leaders and not just managers. And I think central government is treating you like managers. And as leaders of our city, I really think that what I would like to see is you stand up to them and say, no, we're not doing that, or at least begin that conversation. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Simon, thank you very much. I'm just now going to invite Councillor Naylor to ask you a question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. When you talked about debt, you mentioned that we're living beyond our means, and I'm just interested to understand, can you expand a little bit more in terms of, can you identify specific activities that council's doing that you believe is outside of our means, or is it just more of a general statement?
I did say I didn't have any facts and that it's the vibe of the thing, but it was something we really noticed, just in the general attitude of people when we returned from overseas, there was a real feeling of, I'm not getting what I think I deserve and what I need. But a real sense that people were not looking honestly at their own situation on a global and national and local level. So I can't give you any facts about that. Like I say, it's a general thought.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Simon, for coming in. I wanted to pick up on your comments about the community facility investment being in bricks and mortar. We had a submission earlier today where somebody suggested that we should double the amount of investment that we put into funding community groups. Is that the approach that you think is better than investing in bricks and mortar facilities?
Yeah, I really love those community groups and their very existence and their struggle against, just ongoing day-to-day operational costs. Why would we, in a time where the whole country, the whole world is actually saying, we can't afford to do what we're doing, why would we then invest in another bricks and mortar? There are so many buildings in this city that are unoccupied. Yes is the answer. Yes. Invest in the actual people. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Simon. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Kia ora. Last question, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Simon, for raising some big picture things for us. Wanted to ask around the pushback to central government side of things. I guess, how far would you like to see that go?
I don't want to see a revolution and the roads blocked. That would be too far. But I mean, I know there is pushback. You guys do push back, and not just as an individual council, but also, as a group. I know that happens. But for instance, when a water standard can be fine one day and not fine the next, and therefore you need to spend multi-million dollars to upgrade it to what it was yesterday, that needs to be pushed back. And I don't know how to do that because I'm just Joe Schmo. So I don't know how that happens or what level we can take that to. But if we don't push back, if we don't say no, then it will continue.
Thanks. And in terms of where we as a council might make choices in that regard, do you think we should be consulting with the community, or should it be the 16 around this table saying, right, we're just going to push back on this?
I think when you consult with the community is great, but essentially you will get every single separate view, and it comes down to you. That's what needs to happen. You are our representatives, and we elected you because we trust you to do that job. And if we don't then we won't elect you next time.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much, Simon, for your submission. And as I'd mentioned before, on the 29th and 30th, we'll be doing our deliberations. Nō reira, ngā mihi nui ki a koe. Kia ora. I'd now like to call upon Matthew Wiley, who presented submission number 902. Welcome, Matthew. Nice to have you here.
I have a PowerPoint, I think.
Yes, you do. We've got that, and
Oh, there we go, there we go. Kia ora tātou. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Nice to see you. Thank you for this time. Cycling, that's what I'm talking about. I've kind of been into looking at what you guys are doing in terms of promoting cycling in Palmerston North in a very kind of passive way. And I think the recent hoo-ha about the bus stops up on Featherstone Street has made me want to come and throw my helmet into the ring. So, I am Matthew Willie. I am giving a submission on...
should be a clicker there, Matthew, beside you.
Gotcha.
Very good.
The transport bit of the long-term plan. Okay. Arrived Palmerston North 2006. I wasn't aware of the Kiwi sense of humour, particularly, and I arrived and I wanted to get to Longburn, and for the benefits perhaps of Councillor Wood and others, maps used to be paper, and you either had one or not. And I asked this guy, I said, which way is it to Longburn? And he said, well, I wouldn't start from here. And I guess we're in the same situation. We've got this vision for we've got a vision for a really livable city, and there's a plan that's been produced. And we're trying to do it over the top of that city, which grew up around petrol transport, about private car ownership. And that is locked in now, and there's only a limited amount that you can do. I want to see the perfect city for bikes, and for trains, and for pedestrians and buses, and we're not going to get there from where we are right now. Because, we have to compromise. And all of the changes that it's like, in fact, it's like trying to change a biplane into a 747 by changing one bolt at a time. So it's got to happen incrementally, and it's got to happen within budgets. And I get all of that. But in all of that, that dream of a perfect city for cyclists can shrivel. And that's what I worry about. I worry about that when I see good initiatives sort of falter along the way. And that's why I'm here today. So I'm here to exhort you to maintain that dream, to dream big. And we want to do that because everybody wants to save the world. We all know, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't know at this point. We all know that we're in big trouble with climate change. You've got a climate change plan, and it's great. People say, why should we make a change? Because it's not going to make very much difference to us. Well, it's like giving up smoking. You can still be a smoker, but you can smoke less, and you'll have immediate benefits. We drive petrol-driven cars, but if we did it less, it would have benefits. We can future-proof our transport. Oil will go away at some point. Transport technology will change and diversify. And if we stick with motorised, petrol-driven transport, we're going to find all of our investments are in one place. So we're building for a greater choice in transport to allow for diversity. And as I've said, we have a climate change plan, and it's a good one. It's lovely without cars. One of the nice things about lockdown, I'm going off my script, but one of the nice things about lockdown was walking around the streets and seeing how quiet and peaceful and beautiful it was. This is the Esplanade. Reducing car use reduces harmful emissions such as nitrous oxide, blah, blah, blah. Even rubber dust gets into schools. Quieter streets enhance the livability and tranquility of our neighbourhoods. And this is the Esplanade now. And we're kind of used to that landscape now, the landscape full of cars. So why we should dream big? We want to make, I want to see, many people want to see, a safe place for pedestrians, and if we do this, it creates opportunities for physical activity, improving public health, well-being, and if you think about a community that's made up of people in cars versus a community of people on the streets who can talk to each other, then we have a vibrant, engaging community. This is a picture of Toronto, and I know we're not Toronto, and that's my point. It needs to be done incrementally. It also makes economic sense. Unlike cars which simply pass through, people are walking, they're more likely to stop, shop and contribute directly to the local economy. There's studies out there which I'm sure you're aware of. But, and this is where I'm going to raise some hackles, sometimes cyclists can be wrong. I'm a cyclist. They can be pig-headed and they can think their way is the only way. They can think that other people who don't use their mode of transport are inferior. And they miss the point about diversity. Sometimes motorists are wrong. They can be pig-headed and they can think their way is the only way. They can think that other people who don't use their mode of transport are inferior, and they miss the point about diversity. So this is where I'm coming to something maybe that's probably something that you hear less. Compromise. It's a tedious and repetitive argument where you've got motorists on one side and you've got cyclists on the other side. It makes for great memes and a lot of funny or unfunny cartoons. Just in this picture, this is worth pausing at. 72 cyclists and their transport on the left, 72 drivers and their transport in the middle, and 72 passengers on the bus on the right. But I know nothing about local governance, so I asked ChatGPT. And what it says that you should do is that you should establish stakeholder forums, holding public workshops and forums, utilising online platforms. Actually, you are very good at doing this. I frequent the PNCC page. I don't know how much time I've got left. I can't see a clock. 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes,
Okay,
Matthew.
good. So the council's already doing really well with sharing what's going on, promoting it and engaging with people through social media. And I'm lazy, so that's the way that I engage with the council. So I'm good with that. I've written there in brackets, why did I write that? Wait, what? The bus stops are going to be in the lanes? And it's like nobody knew about that. And I have to say that I do take an interest in local governance and looking at what's going on. But sometimes still things come as a surprise to me. So perhaps we could do better on that. Empowering community leaders and advocates and committing to follow up and action. I guess if there is dialogue between, you see, I'm seeing an overlap. I'm seeing mutual interests in cooperation. I'm seeing mutual benefits in our cycle network master plan. It's a good plan. So really, the sum total of what I'm saying to you really is, people need to talk, and we need to make sure that we've got opportunities for dialogue so that we don't have opposing factions in this debate. And we need to keep that dream alive. And the Cycle Network Master Plan is a good plan. And I think we should stick to it. There we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. 1 minute for questions. Councillor Finlay.
Thank you. Matthew, you talk about the perfect cycle city. Where is it, please?
It doesn't exist, it's up here.
Okay.
But the path is a good one.
What would you say was the closest to the perfect cycle city in your mind?
Perfect. Oh, gosh. There's bits of lots of them. I have been in Amsterdam, and I've learnt a lot about Portland in Oregon. But these are big cities with big budgets, and they don't have the same problems that we do.
You can't compare us with those, can you?
Pardon?
You couldn't really compare us with those, could you?
No. But I am acknowledging that we are where we are, and that what we're doing, every step on the pathway is a good one, Councillor.
Okay, thank you.
Is my answer.
Thank you very much, Matthew. We appreciate the effort you've gone to with the PowerPoint and for your presentation, your submission. And on the 29th and 30th of May, we'll be doing our deliberations. But on behalf of everyone, thank you very much. Tēnā koe. And now it gives me pleasure to call upon submitter number 949, our CEDA head, Jerry. Kia ora, Jerry.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Thank you very much for the opportunity to submit. It's been actually really good listening to this for the first time to see the richness of the feedback you're getting from the community, which is great. So look, CEDA has submitted a submission to this process purely on the basis of economic development, so we're coming at it from that lens. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about alignment with this and our vision and the way we do things. So we believe that the draft LTP is well aligned to CEDA's vision, and it strongly aligns with the 4 goals that are outlined in the LTP. We'd like to acknowledge at this point the strong partnership that we have with PNCC, not just as our shareholder, but in really key projects that we work on together. It's reassuring to see that despite the challenging economic times, that the city is committed to taking a long-term outlook view for future-proofing the city for future generations. And it's important in an economic slowdown that we keep investing in infrastructure to continue to future-proof the city for when things, really get going again. So just to talk a little bit about the plan in terms of its investment in roading and infrastructure for roading. From an economic development perspective, we would like to see the business case for the Manawatu Regional Freight Ring Road brought forward into year 1 of the LTP. We think this is a priority for us. We'd also like to further see the prioritising of spend on Te Utanganui, indicated at $23 million over the cycle of the 10-year LTP, Bunnythorpe at $16 million and Stony Creek Road at $12 million in terms of roading, continued and held strong too. Our region is the 3rd node in the distribution and logistics solution for New Zealand Inc. So alongside the Golden Triangle and the Canterbury hubs, it plays an important part in that national freight strategy. It's important and imperative that we are future-proofing and leveraging the opportunities that this provides for our region and for the generations to come. Also, when Te Ahu o Turanga opens, closely followed by the shared path that traverses the Ruahine Range, there will be a lot of focus on the region in terms of all the things we've just mentioned, but also the media spotlight and the national interest on that project opening will be significant. We'd encourage the city to consider the connections of the city to Ashurst to truly leverage this opportunity and to provide a joined-up approach to making the most of that opportunity to profile the region and what we do. Oops, sorry. Oh, I've missed a slide here. Sorry, one of my slides is missing, so I'll just talk to it. We acknowledge the cost pressures that there is in terms of the centre of city landmarks and the community facilities, and we want to take this opportunity to reinforce the importance of investing in future-proofing our city's vibrancy. Being able to sustainably grow the visitor sector and set it up for success means that projects such as the Civic and Cultural Precinct should be seen as critical enablers for the city. It is these developments that will drive key investments such as hotels and enable us to remain competitive regionally and nationally in this event space. We would urge PNCC to consider these projects that provide wider economic benefit in terms of return on investment. We acknowledge that the social licence and community good are equally important, but from an economic development perspective, our views are that Te Motu Oputua is as an icon or seen as an icon of the city and has a long needed and desired need to progress. Its location and cultural significance is very, very clear. The city has excelled in its partnership with Mana Whenua and is somewhat of an exemplar nationally and local government. This would underpin this significantly and tie the Awa developments and journey together nicely. We've always heard that the city was somewhat built backwards, facing away from the river, and whilst this has greatly improved in recent years, this development would see the feather in that hat for the city in terms of refocusing the city on the Awa. We also see the CET Arena upgrades as much needed to ensure we can remain competitive in our areas of secondary school sport, motorsport, and the ability to attract major events. And we're aware that other districts close to us and in other parts of New Zealand are moving fast in that space. We would encourage PNCC to continue to grow its reputation as an enabler of business development and investment through ease of its business processes, through such things as building consents and system reviews for those sorts of processes. It is crucial to maintain a focus on how the region positions itself as a favourable place to do business and attracting developers, all while effectively managing the level of debt to cover new infrastructure not met by development contributions. So just in summary for the final comments, Te Utanganui to us is seen as the key infrastructure project for the city. It will have benefits for a number of areas, including social good, jobs for people, helping people to lift their ability to earn an income and those sorts of things. As part of that, and with the new government, we think the Manawatu Regional Freight Ring Road is the vital cog in that infrastructure piece of work. It will unlock the other key projects inside Te Utanganui and should be prioritised. And I'll close with saying that's our pitch for making the plea that the investment and the business case for that infrastructure comes forward to year one of the LTB.
Thank you very much, Jerry. I'm now going to hand it over to Councillor Bowen, who has a question for you. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually have two questions, Jerry, but they're both related to your comments about Te Motu Oputua. First, you said you thought that would contribute to our growing visitor attractions and boost our conference and business event sector. So I wondered if you would speak to that. And then also, you'll be aware that the proposal for Te Motu Oputua is based on seeking some external funding, and I wondered if you were able to comment on whether you feel like we've got that proportion about right, or if that's doable, what your views are in that space. Thanks.
Yeah, I think in terms of the first question, when people come to the city, and we have visiting family and friends and business visitors coming to the city, it's the experience that they have outside of what they do in their daily visits in terms of their business. So having activities that would allow them to engage with the river, or particularly connect, say, through the cycleway through to Ashurst and those sorts of things, I think would be vital for the city to grow, you know, that what do you do when you finish your business type approach. Secondly, in terms of external funding, look, I think there's there's been various speakers that have spoken today around the play that central government should be playing in these things, or the role they should be playing. I think the more that we can angle these projects to go for special funding in terms of whether it's arts and creative related, or in that inward investment approach, when we start getting more people looking at the city in terms of growing all of the other things that sit on an economic development's radar, I think, you know, we can put some good cases together with the city to try to see if there's funding available externally.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry. Thanks for your work.
Thank you. And final question, Councillor Barrett.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Jerry. Just wanted to pick up on your points around future-proofing, and we've been getting a lot of consistent signals. Everybody wants it. The challenge is that half of the people want it to happen by us absolutely cutting spending, no debt, keep all the money in the pocket, and the other people want us to raise a whole lot of debt, build a whole lot of infrastructure. So my question is really from an economic development perspective, how should we view debt as a city from an economic development perspective?
Look, the debt thing is a bit of an interesting question. From an economic development perspective, research would say quite clearly that when you go from a low economic point to a high economic point, you better be shipshape and ready to receive investment. So by being able to have our infrastructure in good hands and moving forward, so that when people say want to come and invest in Te Utanganui or do some more stuff coming out of the Destination Management Plan, that they've got that ability to know that the city's ripe and ready for taking advantage of that situation. I think in terms of the pragmatic approach is you just need to be making sure that you have a very, very clear vested plan in terms of what that looks like. I think the LTP by and large is very strong on that in terms of the mix of, you know, roading infrastructure, other infrastructure, its view on the importance of cultural activities and other things. So I think there's a nice balance. I just need to say that often, and I've submitted to a lot of these things over the years, there's a lot of conversations around the cost of infrastructure and not wanting to have it, but there's a lot of benefit side things that people don't mention. So there's a lot of benefits of infrastructure investment for the communities that we live in.
Thanks, Chair. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Jerry and Cedar, for the work that you do, and also more particularly this submission that will help us with our deliberations on the 29th and 30th of this month. Thank you. Kia ora. I'd now like to call upon John Shannon from Unions Vanuatu for submission number 957. Welcome, John. Just get yourself ready and start whenever you are ready to go. Thank you. And thank you, Ben. Good to see you. Ben will be accompanying John in support.
Tēnā koe, kia ora tātou, ngā mihi o te ahi ahi. Tēnā koe, ko John Shannon ahau. We recognise we are the last presenters and you've all had a long day, so we will try and be quick. Our written submissions focused on council staff, rates, the living wage and social housing. One additional item has arisen that we would like to address. Today, the 15th of May, is known to Palestinians as Nakba, the catastrophe, which arises from the establishment in 1948 of the State of Israel. It is a very important day remembered throughout the Arab world. Unions Vanuatu requests Palmerston North City Council to investigate a sister city relationship with a Palestinian city, preferably in Gaza. Our suggestion is Beit Lahiya, which in 2017 had a population of 90,000. So is reasonably close to the size of Palmerston North. This action would give a focus to the overwhelming desire of Palestinians for a just peace in Palestine and a cessation of hostilities between Israeli military and Hamas forces. The current genocide, the slaughter of innocent non-combatants, women and children, is horrendous, and we here in New Zealand must do what we can, as limited as that might be, to bring about a solution. Our government has called for a ceasefire, and we locally should do what we can to endorse that stand. The living wage calculations assessed each year by the Family Centre Social Policy Research Unit based in Lower Hutt, which is an independent evidence-based organisation that maintains a significant database on economic trends. The calculation is based on the needs of 2 adults and 2 children on 1.5 incomes. The rates set out there, I won't go through them, you've got them in front of you. The Palmerston North City Council salary scales in the collective agreements negotiated each year are very much within the living wage ballpark. To become an accredited living wage employer would not cost the council anything much, as most salaries are above the rate. There might be a few staff, we estimate around 40, who are on rates just below the living wage rate. In some measure, that difference is only temporary in that the living wage moves up in November while the PNCC wage negotiations happen in July. So an adjustment to the living wage template would only be an initial temporary impact. The fact that the rates are so close means that a move to accreditation would not put any pressure on council in respect to pay relativities between staff. but we believe the significant value of council identifying itself as a living wage payer would be important to the community, and we've set out in our submission much more detail around the significance of that statement to the people of Palmerston North. So Union to Manawatu requests that Palmerston North City Council become an accredited living wage employer for the reasons set out in our submission. I'll hand over to Ben Schmidt.
Kia ora, Ben. Could you just push your mic on the button on the right-hand side?
Hand side.
Thank you.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, John. So following on, we also want to commend the 15 city councillors who voted in favour of retaining Māori awards the other week, which is something that as unionists we believe very strongly in. And the theme of our submission, the message we want to communicate is that the council continues to do the right thing, not just the easy thing at a point in time. And to that effect, social housing is really important, and we commend the council on its role and its moral stance on maintaining and further developing council social housing when many other councils have sold that off or privatised it. Keep on doing that, and especially that is an issue for many workers who may be retired, injured, disabled, having been working on low-income jobs and need the important place of social housing. So keep developing it, keep it public, under council control, and we'd strongly support the development of more social housing at places such as Terrace End Bowling Club. Also, we do support keeping the current criteria and the rent settings for council social housing as they are. The council's known for having slightly more flexible criteria, which is really important for people who need housing but may fall through the cracks of the MSD requirements. And keeping rent for subsidised housing based around 25% of income is also important. This is people for whom every cent counts, and we need to keep the rents affordable, and as they are, while the CPI may be tracking down, for many people, especially those on lower incomes, the cost of living is not. Rents are still going up, and the Household Living Cost Price Index, which is a much more accurate measure of what we have to pay for day to day, is still up 7% the last time that was updated. So stay the course, keep up the good work with social housing, keep the settings and the rent the way they are, really crucial public good, and it is a place where the council sets a strong example to others. Lastly, as an organiser working in the tertiary education sector, we want to stress the importance of tertiary education to the city, and that the council continues to advocate with Massey University and government and tertiary institutions for the importance of strong regional tertiary education in our city. Welcome to hear any questions.
Thank you very much, Ben and John, and I'm going to now pass it over to Councillor Bowen for a question. Thank you,
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to go to, I think, the final comment in your written submission, John, where you said you ask Council not to adopt any slash and burn approach to the Council's finances and thereby weaken our community. What are you most scared of there? Why is that your final comment?
I suppose it is built really around the social housing issue that we have observed around the country. A number of councils go for what I think we've described as the short-term sugar hit of getting rid of social housing as a means of balancing the budget. Of course, the economy changes and moves on, and now 15, 20 years after those councils sold off, that the economic situation is totally different. They've lost that revenue, they've lost that asset. It's gone, it's history. There's no longer any sugar coming from that hit. And we're just worried that in the way in which the media have built up a sort of story today of catastrophe of how we economically are facing this we have to take radical courses and things. Our fear is that you may be incited to get rid of those things which our foremothers and forefathers have built for us.
Thank you. So just to follow up, Ben, in your comments, one of the things you mentioned was you don't want to see social housing move out of council control, and it felt like you used that term quite deliberately. So what was your concern there?
So we have seen other councils around the country, as John touched on, sell off their council housing or really privatising it by taking it out of council control. So it is not only an asset to the council, the current social housing, but it maintains much stronger community and democratic control over how it will be used, how that housing will be provided for the community, that we do not want to see that sold or privatised or taken out of direct council management.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And the last question, Councillor Johnson, and I will stop you once we exhaust this time. Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, John and Ben. John, just in your written submission, you made some comments about supporting the capital value-based rating system. Do you think that your members or the people that you're representing, I suppose, as Unions Manawatu, do you think there's any consensus on that, or is that more your kind of feel on?
Yes,
I don't know. I won't put words into your mouth. If you can just give us a bit more on that.
We haven't gone to our members and got any mandate from that. It's just looking at and as I've said in the submission, I don't think there's any sort of way in which that can be absolutely ticked off. It's going to affect people in different ways and different circumstances. We have members who are very wealthy and can afford to pay much increased rates. We have people who are absolutely on the bones of their proverbial and can't afford any increase. So it's anybody's guess. And good luck, I say to you all.
Thank you.
John, Ben, ngā mihi nui kia kōrua. Thank you very much for your submission. We will adjourn for the moment, everyone. For those people who are here ready for the next, who are either in the public listening to the submissions or ready for the next session, there is tea, coffee, water available out in the link span, and councillors will be back here for a 4 o'clock start. Thank you, everyone. out of one of the exits that are identified by those signage there, and out there. And if you could meet outside by the clock tower, that would be appreciated. And for anyone who would like to use the toilets, if you go straight out here to the left, the women's toilet area, and to the right, the gentlemen, and there's tea and coffee and water should anyone require anything to drink as well. So, welcome back. We have Helen online. Tēnā koe, Helen. Helen has two submissions. That is 291 for the waste minimisation plan and 304 also for the same waste minimisation plan. And we're going to do it like we did for the last session and combine those. So Helen has 20 minutes all up. May or may not take that. Thank you very much, Councillor Denison. We've recorded that. Thank you. And we also have Councillor Hapeta and Councillor Meehan online. Thank you. So, Helen, you have 20 minutes, and when you're ready, if you can start, thank you.
Kia ora everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Helen King, and I'm firstly going to speak on behalf of Environment Network Manawatu submission. I know that most of you will be aware that Environment Network Manawatu does its submissions in strong consultation with its member groups, who have an opportunity to feed into these and to add their thoughts and values, which makes for quite a comprehensive submission on our behalf. I'll talk about the A&Ms first, and then I'll talk about my personal submission afterwards. So just a few key things I want to highlight in E&M's submission. We are delighted that Council has chosen to review its waste minimisation and management plan that little bit early, especially after the food scraps trial, which my understanding was that it was a great success, and that Council's going to look to roll that out earlier than the 2030 date that I understand is the mandate for all councils, but potentially in 2028. We fully support this, and we support a food scraps and green scraps combination as well. But I also do want to highlight community composting as part of this equation. You may be aware that E&M has been running a community composting trial with 6 centralised spots where people can drop their food waste and their compost, and this has had really promising results. And it's another addition to this kind of little recipe of ways that we can deal with our food scraps, and we are hoping to expand that further and gain further support for that. So far, I think for the statistics I gave, maybe a ton and a half of food has been rescued from landfill and made into something that is profitable, that can be put on people's gardens so they can grow good kai and be nourished by it. So we also, we just want to tout the benefits of that system as well. E&M itself does a fair amount in the waste minimisation space, and one of the things that we've done recently with support from the Resource Recovery Fund is added some recycle bins to our office for hard to recycle items. This was quite a learning curve for us, to put it mildly. We had a huge uptake on various things, the greatest uptake being on medical waste, to the point where we could have bought a box every 2 weeks to recycle people's medical waste. So things like their blister packs, that was the main thing we were recycling there, which people have their tablets in. And a lot of people would literally come to our office and drop these off and be incredibly grateful, because it had been a big puzzle to them about what they could do with these things. This wasn't tenable financially. This is a tricky thing to do. Those boxes are expensive, but it gave us some good learning about what people want. And we have talked with your waste minimisation team around what we can do about this. because people want to recycle some of these hard to recycle things. And obviously government standardisation of this has given councils a little bit less play in around how they can do this. But we want to look at ways as well we can be innovative and also advocate those medical groups around their responsibility for that medical waste, which is, you know, a fairly big component of what goes into landfill as well, which is distressing for people. They don't like chucking that stuff away and they want to look and seek for ways to solve that problem. The other thing I wanted to touch upon is gratefulness for the Resource Recovery Fund. Palmerston North Repair Cafe, which E&M oversees, is funded from this. And this is a wonderful community venture where 20 to 25 volunteers come along and help fix people's broken goods. This is a way of keeping things out of landfill. And it's also a way of creating community cohesion and educating people about how to repair. We've started to really integrate education into repair cafes. And the last repair cafe, we held a tool sharpening workshop. So we're thinking things like axes and gardening tools and things like that. And 36 people turned up to that because they wanted to learn how to keep those tools so they didn't end up in the landfill. Though we're supportive of the Resource Recovery Fund, we're also supportive of community-led models around repurposing and recycling. For a while there, council initiated and led the Zero Waste Action Group, and there were several groups, including E&M, who were involved in this, and it did have some success. It gave out a little bit of funding and it enabled some projects to happen. We wondered more about a community-led kind of grassroots option here, instead of, or maybe alongside the Zero Waste Action Group, where we kind of responded on a grassroots level to things that were coming up. And E&M could be a position to do this work if we were resourced to do it. So we have experience doing this. One of the big things that E&M does is it listens, and if it's a groundswell in regards to environmental issues, then we can kind of bring people together and help find solutions. Repair Cafe came as part of this. Repair Cafe was a groundswell of people saying, why don't we have one of these? We want to be able to learn how to mend our stuff and do these things. Natural burials, though that is a 25-year conversation, this again has been risen to the fore by people coming, and again, coming to E&M and going, can you help us organise a meetings so that we can actually start to rally around these things as well. And this could be something that we do in the zero waste space as well. That's my E&M. I'll talk a little bit about some of my perspectives as well. I completely support, again, from watching it happen, community composting. I'm an avid permaculture gardener. I live out in Ashurst, and I used to be the coordinator of RECAP and was involved there on the board and things like that. So I understand the value of composting and growing my own food. I'm also a solo mother, and it's a bit tough when you're on your own sometimes financially. So my skills around growing and composting save me money, and they help me keep my family food rich and my neighbours food rich as well. So alongside that green waste collection, I do support rolling out of initiatives that involve community composting. I also support the part of the plan that talks about looking a little bit into companies, from what I understood, companies, and seeing if there are ways that we can regulate waste. Because I understand the council works really hard to help people reduce their waste and gives out a lot of good information about this. And there are a lot of initiatives helping us do this. Private companies aren't necessarily doing that. They're businesses. And during this summer, as a gardener and a composter, I was quite horrified to hear adverts on the radio kind of saying, you can put your green waste in your bin. I was thinking, no, please put it on your compost. Can we teach people how to compost better, please, and keep that stuff out of the landfill? So I do support an examination of that. I'd like to see less things going into landfill, people learning how to compost if they can and if they have the space to do so, and that going to create better CAI for families in our neighbourhoods as well. I also support, and this was in E&M's submission too, if we're looking at doing something with our resource recovery facility to create something that's a little bit more community based. I do love the example in Ohakuni, and when I go to Ohakuni, I often go there, how they do recover things and how they do sell them on as well. I think that would be a lovely model to incorporate into what we do, and it would give the facility that real community feel. I was one of those lucky few who got to go on a tour a few weeks ago, and I was exceptionally happy to see what was going on there. It was absolutely wonderful. But if that became more of a holistic community resource where there are different things going on there, I do believe it would help the community engage more and understand and increase what they choose to reuse and recycle as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Helen. And I'm just going to go to councillors to see if anyone has any questions. Just a reminder to councillors that questions are directed to the submitters, please. Yes, Councillor Bowen, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Helen.
Kia
Just
ora.
a question about food scraps and green waste. You said you support both of those. Obviously, we're required to do the food scraps. Green waste is...
Yes.
Shall we add that on? Do you have a view about whether green waste should be an opt-in, or there's an ability to opt out of having it? Or do you think everybody should have it and pay for it?
That's an interesting one. From an E&M point of view, I suspect our members would prefer, it's hard to say, I can't really say because we haven't consulted with them on that little part, but I suspect everybody having it would be great. From a personal point of view, I see both sides of that. I compost most things, so I don't really create that green waste. So I guess in my little head, I would go, I'm creating my own resource. Should I have to pay for that? I do think, though, if it wasn't optional, people would use it and they'd learn how to use it as well.
Okay. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Kia ora, Helen, thank you very much. There's no further questions to ask of you, but we're very grateful for your submission on behalf of E&M and also your personal submission. And thank you for all that you do. Kia ora.
Thank you for the opportunity. Kia ora.
Ka kite. Now it gives me pleasure to call upon submitter 565, Mike Clement. Thank you, Mike. And Mike, if you just push that, yes, you've got it. Well done.
Good afternoon all. It's a pleasure to be back seeing you all again 2 years after the date that I came here before for the first time. So I'm not a first time responder now. Well, I'm not a virgin to council. It's good to see all your smiling faces, and it's good to see some new faces on council as well, and some of the councillors that, yeah, I like what you do, guys. Long story short, I'll give you the short version. The too long, didn't bother listening, and then I'll go through a few points, but really I'd like to have a conversation with you and get you to ask some questions. So the too long, didn't bother listening. Stop spending money we don't have on things we don't need. Yep, simple, to the point, very clear, very concise. Council, I've had a few chats today. What did you say I was doing there, Brent? Lobbying councillors? No. I'm having chats with people, and it's all about getting across to them the point that we don't need some of the things that this council is rubber stamping. And unfortunately, it seems to be that maybe ideology is trumping practical reality. And maybe that's something that needs to be moderated just a tad. I know you all want to get re-elected next time, and that if you don't keep your base appeased, you won't get that re-election. But at the end of the day, there's 90,000 people out there, and 65% of them didn't bother voting. And when I was out there doing my little bit to get the meagre vote I got, the response I got was, we don't bother voting because the council doesn't listen. So I could go over a few things. I could talk about how about 3 weeks ago, Grant was in an interview with Radio New Zealand saying that the wastewater plant was going to cost 30 million 9 years ago, but now it's going to cost 640 million. And if you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you. If it's not $1 billion by the time this council finally gets approval for it, we'll be lucky. I could talk about the $1,000 levy that will be imposed on ratepayers, but we all know that's coming, and we all know it's going to be $1,000, and we all know it's going to be more than 30 years. That's going to be a burden on the ratepayers of the city. We could talk about the 10 years worth of rate increases that is in the long-term plan, that the ratepayers cannot carry forever. So, who's got questions for me? Because this is not me talking at you, this is you asking me questions about why I feel the way I do and who I'm representing.
Thank you, Mike. I'm going to go with Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Mike, for your submission. You have acknowledged that government has had an effect on petrol and house prices. Do you think that government has had any effect on the costs that local government need to charge ratepayers?
Absolutely. Everything government touches costs money. Any legislation that you impose, both central and local, it costs us. Cost of building is because of legislation, and finally we're getting around that with RMA reforms and maybe getting the vested interest out of writing the legislation. The less that Fletcher's has to do with it, the better for all of us. But yes, when council imposes burdens on anyone to do anything, it increases cost.
I was talking about government, not council.
Well, council is government, it's just local government. So central and local all have a part to play in the increase in costs on ratepayers and taxpayers.
So, do you know how much we're proposing to spend on water upgrades in the next 10 years, capital costs?
Yep, that's a lot. Well, the wastewater plant was $650 million.
How much is the water?
Say again?
How much is the water upgrades?
I don't have the numbers on me.
No. Well, it's more than $1 billion.
It's too much. We can't burden that.
Yeah, and
We can't pay
that's mandated by government, those improvements.
Well, this is where we should be pushing back, because a lot of that is because the standards that are being imposed on council by Horizons, which they're just unrealistic. They really are. And that's where the council should be turning around and saying, we can't do it. We literally can't do it. Take us to court. See what happens. If Wellington can pump raw sewage into the harbour, if Auckland can pump raw sewage into the harbour, we can do more with less. But $1 billion for a city of 90,000 people, let's not be silly, shall we?
Okay, I'll leave it there, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Zabellan.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. I've a couple of questions. One is that you mentioned in your submission concerns around flood risk with medium density growth, and we've sort of explored growing out and expanding and growing in. Do you have a preference on which is more advisable way to expand?
Good question. I think there needs to be two bits. If we're going to do medium density, we can't just use the existing areas, because the street I live in floods. We've got medium density down one end of the house, we've got lots of infill housing at one end of the street, and it floods. And that's simply because the existing infrastructure, the pipes, they can't handle overflow. There's less grass, and you need the grass to absorb the rain. If it's just falling on concrete or roofs, it's going into your stormwater drains. So if you're going to build medium density or high density, you need to actually plan ahead for that and have the pipes and the infrastructure in place to support all that runoff. Most places in Palmerston North don't. But we need to do a bit of both. We need the high density, we need the medium density, and we need the open places, because some people don't want to live in a shoebox.
Thank you for that. And I just had one other one, which was sort of what you were talking about, a view that council doesn't listen to submitters. And I'm really interested in the balancing act of some view has come in that council can't just be saying yes to everyone who comes to us and asks for money or support, and then the view that a lot of the things that have been proposed in the long-term plan are projects that have come through submissions. So I'm very curious what your views are on how we should best be balancing what people ask us for when they ask us for projects and investment, and when they ask us not to invest.
I'm going to put it a different way. There is a big silent majority out there who doesn't even bother talking. Yeah, we all know it. Every single one of you in this room knows it. If you went canvassing last election, how many people didn't even bother talking to you? Look at the turnouts to our little talks that we have, all the public events. It was the same people turning up time and time again. The vast majority of Palmerston North, and I'd say the vast majority of New Zealand and local government, doesn't give a rat's ass anymore because they feel disenfranchised. They're not talking to you. They're not telling you what they need, let alone what they want. You're hearing the loud minority, and they're the people who keep coming to you, who keep lobbying you for stuff. Joe Smo, who's working out there 10, 12 hours a day, isn't bothering to lobby you because he's just busy working his ass off to make ends meet. That's the person that you need to connect with, and you're not connecting with them. Because right now, they're either sleeping because they're on shift work and buses and bikes don't work for them, or they're on shift now doing manual labour. They don't talk to you. They're not here. I'm here because they work for me, and I can speak for them. Because when I told them I was coming today, they said, give the council a bit of a serve up, will you? Tell them to do what needs to be done and ignore the pretty stuff. Fix the footpaths, fix the roads, fix the water. Everything else will come after that. You fix the essential stuff, you get the core infrastructure sorted, the city will grow naturally.
Thank you. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Councillor Dennison, probably the last question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some comments that you picked up around the hybrid versus the land capital options. Do you want to give some additional commentary on the proposal there?
It's the preferred option, but I know whichever way we're going to go, the poor old ratepayer is going to get screwed over because those rates increases are coming whatever we do. I understand that. Cost of living increases, CPI increases, inflation increases, so we're all going to be burdened with an increase. I think it is the fair option because you're balancing the land value and the asset value. But it's the best of the worst. And unfortunately, it is a structure that we have to fund the council and fund the things that we need. But yeah.
Kapai, thank you.
Well, I take that back, Councillor Barrett, but I will stop you the moment we get to zero. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Just wanted to pick up in your written submission, you had a comment towards the end around wanting tangible benefits of service delivery and community support. I just wanted to know what is your threshold around a benefit becoming tangible?
Okay, so then any business, anyone who runs a business, there's a couple of people around who run businesses, know that whenever you do something, you have to do a cost-benefit analysis. Weigh the cost against what you're actually going to get out of it. Spending money's fine, but if you're spending money and you're not getting any efficiency or effectiveness, you're just wasting it. If you're just doing it to do something, it's not worth sense. I think the one thing that I would ask for is this council needs to be very, very visible about cost overruns and budget overruns, because we don't see that. We know that projects go over, but I think it would be a public service to actually put that information very visibly online. How much did we budget for this project and how much did we actually end up spending? Make that visible and actually start holding the contractors and the people who run these projects accountable for their overruns, because we don't have that much money to spend and we need to spend it wisely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect timing. Thanks, Mike. Much appreciated for your submission. And the 29th and 30th May is when we're having our deliberations. Thank you. I'd now like to invite from the Athena Women's Collective, Jean and Marianne, to the table. Thank you. Welcome to both of you. Ngā mihi nui.
Yeah, is that right? Okay. Rightio, thank you again for this opportunity to speak to you. We're just going to talk to some, we won't read our submission, we know that you've read it. So we'll just talk to certain aspects of it, okay. So we say here we are elders, we've been, Athena has been around for 30 plus years, and so we have, over this time, we've taken an ongoing interest in civic matters. We're passionate about people and the planet, wanting good outcomes. So we, really interesting. You get to listen to everyone here. It's wonderful, isn't it? We are great believers in participatory democracy, and so we're aware that we're very fortunate that we have the resources, we have the confidence, and we've had the time to come here today. And so, thank you again. Okay, so I'm going to start with water. So water is a human right and needs to be available freely to all, for safe and healthy, for safe and healthy living. Now we all know this. So where we differ, I guess, is the process on how to do this, on how to get there. So we believe that we need to be investing in public ownership and essential services on a much greater scale. We strongly believe that we can't afford to return to the playbook of the 90s. So we want all the things that we need. We want better, we want to improve waterways for safety and environmental habitat reasons. It's all really important. But we are very strongly opposed to the privatisation of this important infrastructure, including a PPP approach of partial privatisation. And we do this because, as I've said, we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past, where essential infrastructure was privatised and then was needed to be brought back. So the same applies for Nature Calls, our wastewater. Again, we are advocating and we strongly support an increased investment in the public ownership and essential services component of our wastewater and our waste management. So I don't know whether I can actually say it any stronger than that. So I can leave that. And now housing. Okay, so we think you're doing a really good job. We strongly support council's work on social housing, and we definitely want this housing kept in PNCC ownership. We just need more. We just need more of everything you're doing. I mean, I think probably the housing situation is our biggest failure to date, and it's not just in Palmerston North, it's around the country. And I think that, well, we think that, and we've written here all these lovely words here, and we really passionately believe in this. We can't see the point in building any houses if people can't afford to live in them, or if they don't adequately meet people's needs. And so we think we just need new housing models and leaving housing to the market. The market at the moment delivers something which wants to maximise profit, draw every little bit out of house owners over house renters, and actually to get the maximum subsidies there are out of tax incentives from local authorities or government. It's a racket, and no one is winning. So we need a different model, and we need regulations, and we're really alarmed. And so because we know that the market models are prevailing, and that's what all of our central governments have used, we're just recognising this is why we're in this situation we're in. And so we said last time when we spoke last year, we were worried about high density housing impacting on the community. And I think we're in this crisis mode, and so we think, oh God, we need more houses, we need more houses. And it's like putting chickens in a chicken coop. It's just not what we want to do. We just want to take a deep breath, and we want to be doing stuff which is actually worth doing. which is really going to satisfy people's needs, or further down the track it's going to be a disaster, or we're not going to be addressing any of the actual problems that we've got in our community. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to Jean now.
Right, I thought you were going to mention the rates.
Oh, I am.
Well, I can do it if you like.
Okay, well, I think it's obvious that we would think that there's a shift of burden from low-income, poorer houses to the more wealthy houses, so we're going for the capital value. Thank you.
Right. I would like to start with just quickly commending you on your continued support for the Māori wards. We've been strong supporters of that, and to see that it was almost unanimous was really pleasing in the face of this government's requirement to have an expensive referendum, so keep with that. We also want to support some of the submissions that are informed by a lot of community input, and we heard from E&M, but also Te Pūhara Kiki who are coming. They have a lot of links in the community, a lot of community groups that they're hearing from, and also the volunteers and the clients who are using those groups. So that voice of those key sectors is very important. I'm going to talk a little bit about the emphasis we want on the environment and climate, and we did note that the amount of spending on climate change mitigation and adaptation is very low when it's such an important issue. We would like to see systems for establishing marakai, the community gardens, to be a lot simpler. I know E&M didn't talk about that, but I think I did see something in the submission that it is quite problematic when there's lots of little groups trying to do this, meet the requirements, and it's too hard. But if the city could come together and do it as a whole by working with E&M to improve that situation, it would be very good. In terms of the natural burial, which I have been a strong supporter of, it would be good if the council could demonstrate that it's not too hard to achieve, as the headline noted. As Mark Blackham said from the Natural Burial Association, he says ideal soil is best, but you can work with less than ideal. Natural burial is really important because in terms of people's spiritual beliefs, being part of nature rather than above or separate to nature is a growing value in spiritual belief. And council needs to recognise that under the Human Rights Act, as I wrote in the submission, local authorities cannot discriminate on the basis of religion or ethical belief. And that connection to nature is part of that. And so more should be done to recognise that. I'll just end with saying the measure of society, of community, is how it treats its most vulnerable, and often their voices are missing and can be neglected. Those that are the loudest are often heard, as we heard from the previous speaker. But I don't think we agree with his perspective on that. But yes, we'll leave it with that. We'll have time for questions.
Tēnā kōrua. I think we have time for one very quick question. Councillor Barrett, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks to you both. Just wanted to ask something around the written submission where you talked about the language in Goal 2 around arts, community and cultural facilities that are well supported and invested in, and wanting to see that well supported and invested in language reflected in Goal 3 and Goal 4. And I just want to understand why that's important.
Well, I think it's being consistent. Why put it in one when those other groupings aren't included also? That was my thinking. They're all important. It was pleasing to see it for arts and culture, but also important for community and environment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jean and Marianne, for your submission. We're very
Thank
grateful
you.
for that. Ka kite kōrua, ngā mihi. And on the 29th and 30th, we're doing our deliberations. Thank you. Now it gives me pleasure to call on submission number 1117. Graham, thank you. Is Graham here? Thanks, Graham. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair, councillors. My submission's sort of over the whole area, but I want to base it on two areas. One being the local transport. You've done a great job of providing us brand new buses and everything for one person on it every half an hour. Great expense on our ratepayers, I feel. Secondly, we have, the Featherston upheaval, Feather Street upheaval. Now we see up Pacific Drive, we've got bus shelters put in the centre of the footpath. Well, the pedestrians can't walk through the footpath, they've got to walk around the bus shelter. So I don't know where your consultants are coming from or whatever, but somebody's got to be accountable. And that's pretty much, I'll leave the transport at that. But my main submission is on the nature calls. This is the basis of my submission. So the PNCC website shows at the moment it's $647 million as of 23. Back in 21, the estimate was 387 million. Well, that's a big jump. Even if you use 7% of inflation rate for those 3 or 4 years, it would take in the totals to say 474 million. So either something was either missed in the first BPO, best practical option, excuse me, or there's a big jump there. So what's going to happen in 2029? If we're going to be 900,000. So then we go on and we're going to use the CIP, the Crown Infrastructure Partners System, where it could levy each household $1,000. Well, you're on top of your rates. I don't think most people can afford that. And then you carry on your best practical option. I'd note that in the weighing system, as you're aware, you use a weighing system to find your BPO. Well, affordability was 10% of that weighing system. General engineering practices says you use somewhere between 30 and 60% for affordability. Am I missing something here? I don't know. But you're totally flawed. Whether it's your consultants that's misleading you or what, your weighing system is way off. So then you go to your BPO. Obviously, I'm not privy to what the best practical option is, but obviously your consultants have come up with, and I believe have spent something in the vicinity of $8 million with these people so far. Has that been peer reviewed by a third party? Is it the BPO? Now, would that have changed if the affordability, the weighing process had a higher weight for affordability? Would that BPO change? You've got so many variables here and so much cost that I heard somebody, I think it was on this morning's session, that they said, oh no, the cost is only 500 and something, the rest is, no, the rest was for sludge fund. So I don't really know where you're coming from on your website and things like that. So we've got a high debt servicing. So you're talking about $1,000 on each property. Now, say you got, I don't know, a business that uses a high percentage or a high flow to the system. They're going to get hit. Where are they going to go? Fielding and Martin. You've lost them. So where does the rest of that debt go? Ratepayer. So it goes from $1,000 to $15,000. Or the price goes from 100 million to 900 million in the debt servicing. You're talking about a 30-year period. Your numbers just don't stack up. Now your BPO, Taupo, they use a 50% a 50% system where they put on land and disposal through other areas. Now, if you do disposal on land, you don't have to have such a higher quality because you want the nutrients to feed the grass. Now, we're talking in the website, it states that we, Palmerston North PNCC, will have the highest quality water disposal. Why do we need the highest quality of water disposal in New Zealand? It's probably 10 times clearer than what's going down in Manawatu now. Has anyone done a feasibility of what's happening upstream and what we're putting in there? Have they done a feasibility on land or
aquifer recharge. There's so many variables, and this is going back for, this stuff changes from, in years, in 5 years, there's a new idea out overseas or something like that. I know, is it Perth, I think it is, they do an underground recharge. Theirs is so pure that they recharge it higher than where they're taking the water from. So they're recycling, it's closed loop. I don't think we need that level of quality to put back into there. So you could go decap or fire close to the coast, so it's not affecting any bores. It goes out through the sand, it's filtered, goes to sea. So I believe the BPO really needs a peer review of the costs, and then once again the consultants have got to be held accountable here, not just giving a high level figure of, we think it could be in this figure, and then we'll put a contingency sum, that's the word I was after. We'll put a contingency sum here of 150 million for in case of. That's what happened with Kiwi Rail, look what happened there. No wonder companies go broke. Anyway, in closing, I believe it'd be prudent for the council to engage another major engineering company, consultancy company, to do a peer review and see if the BPO may be correct. I could be totally wrong. But if they have a peer review by another third party, it may say yes, it may say no, maybe consider this option, but we've got to go down. Auckland City did a system for 1.2 million, it cost 360,000. We're proposing double that for 1/10 of the number. Are we for real? Somebody's got to do something. I guess it's your problem, not mine, but as a ratepayer, as a consultant myself, I'd be asking real big questions of the consultant you're using. Anyway, that's what I would request, if we could have a high-level review of that, and then maybe it is the best option, maybe not. But we've got to get back to our core services, not the fluffies. People don't want fluffies like a big piece of art sitting in the middle of the square or something like that. They can't afford that. They want a food on their table. We've got to be realistic. Get back to core services. Do stuff that you can do well. And then there's plenty of other people out there that can do the hairy-fairy fluffy stuff. There's NGOs that do that sort of thing. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. I have Councillor Wood about to ask you a question.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you for taking the time to come in and submit. You used the term realistic a few times in your submission, and now just again then. I was just wondering, that's a subjective term. In your view, what is realistic in terms of rate increases?
Realistic of rate increases? Well, it's not so much rate increases as what is realistic. It's realistic as what you're charging rates for. Let's be realistic here. The thing is, people have only got so much pot, and if you're going to go and buy hairy-fairy art for your wall or something, people are going to get upset. But if they're going to put services in the ground, so they've got fresh water, sewer and things like that, and you've got keeping people coming in, then you'll probably get growth into the city. You're not going to get growth from doing all these great expenditure things when they can go to Martin or Fielding and get it cheaper. So I don't think the rate increase is the issue. It's what you're doing with the rates.
Thank you, appreciate that understanding. And then my other question was, are you aware that this council isn't the council that owns or operates the bus services? That's Horizons?
I realise that, but this council does have part of it.
Fair enough.
And they do some consulting with the footpaths of where the bus shelters go, which would be your engineering department, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Councillor Naylor, thank you, and I will close at 0 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Just have a question in your written submission about plans for housing. You've written there that this should be on a self-sustaining basis, and I'm just wondering if you could expand a little bit more on that.
Yeah, well, I noticed in the rate breakdown, I'm paying something just shy of 5% of my rates for social housing. I've done a lot I'm an architectural designer and building surveyor by trade. I've done a lot of work with Habitat for Humanity and things like that, where they build houses on a rent-to-buy basis. And it's self-sustaining. And they've still got CEOs, and they've got business managements, they've got business plans, they've got office managers, and they're making money. So what I'm saying is, hey, there's NGOs here that can do that stuff
without council taking ownership. I know it's an inherited legacy, but I know that it's maybe something that we could cut back on. 5% of my rates is a lot of money for, I've got to pay a mortgage and I've got to pay something else towards someone else's mortgage. Once people work that out, they go, oh.
Thank you. It's helpful.
Graham, thank you very much on behalf of all of us for making the submission and taking the time to come here in person. Thank you.
Thank you very
Kia ora.
much.
Can I please invite Brian and Matt, who are representing Te Araroa Manawatu Trust, to come up. Thank you. Nice to see you both. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Kia ora, councillors. Nice to be back here. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. First of all, Matt Claridge, the Executive Director of Te Araroa Trust nationally, wasn't able to make it today, so I've got Anthony here who might be able to help me with some questions later on. He's another trustee.
Sorry about
that. Just as a reminder, Te Araroa Trails is a long-distance through hike from Cape Reinga to Bluff, with Palmerston North at its heart as a halfway city. This city is a significant point in the trail for those who are doing the through hike. They get here, they restock, they resupply, they refresh for a journey further south. The National Trust, supported by volunteer regional trusts, has a number of focus areas, including facilitating a high-quality experience for hikers, improving the trail infrastructure along the way, and building relationships with stakeholders. On this latter point, we're lucky to have strong support from all three councils in our area, MDC, PNCC and HDC. For example, this week we're installing a toilet supplied by HDC at a campsite in the hills behind Shannon. You're probably aware MDC has completed their shared path towards Bunnythorpe and has started building the other way towards Bulls. PNCC also have been very helpful over the years in getting the trail off the road in places and providing enhancements to the walking tracks through the city and the campsite in Gordon Kia Forest. We're very grateful for all that support we get from council. On the infrastructure front, we're here to advocate in particular in support of the Active Transport Program 2057, which is shared paths new and links to other shared paths. Specifically, as we submitted last year, we're especially keen to see the completion of the shared path from Palmerston North to Fielding to link with the path that MDC has built coming south. This is the route that Te Araroa hikers follow through the region, and they spend a lot of time walking on the roads through the Manawatu, which is not in favour. They prefer to be off the roads. PNCC officers are proposing a stage construction of the path from Palmerston North to Bunnythorpe. And as a priority, and for safety reasons, we advocate for completion of stage 1. It's the 500-metre section from Kairinga Bunnythorpe Road north to Wars Road. This is a section that passes through wasteland and crosses 2 streams. When these streams are in flood, walkers are forced off that off-road path or wasteland path and onto the busy Campbell Road, which pretty much has no shoulder. So from a safety perspective, that's our main priority that we'd like to see. This path not only used for Te Araroa hikers, obviously, it forms part of a commuting and a recreation route from Palmerston North to Fielding, and it'll be used by thousands of hikers and many more thousands of locals every year. that's about all, I think. We're happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Brian and Anthony. Questions from councillors? There being none, I'd like to thank you both for coming along and for your submission. Thank you, Anthony, and thank you, Brian. Kia ora. Can I please call up to the table 1034 submission, and that's Kim. Is Kim here? Thank you, Kim. Nice to have you. Welcome.
Kia ora. My name is Kim. I'm here today to advocate on behalf of the Palmy dogs who find themselves left unclaimed in the Palmerston North City Animal Shelter. First, I'd like to address the cost of the new animal shelter. Having watched the publicly available video on the current facility, the need for this new shelter is, to put it lightly, long overdue. As I see it, the cost of the current facility comes down to two main things: the amount of time it took to recognise the need for a new one, and the clash of this timing with the unprecedented rise in building costs resulting from COVID. The ones who bear absolutely no fault for the high cost of the new facility are the very unfortunate dogs who not only find themselves in the pound, but who are left there with their lives on the line if they cannot be rehomed. With Council's latest decision to raise adoption fees to $559 all up, much higher than other councils, it almost seems like Palmy's vulnerable abandoned dogs are being penalised for their own sad and scary predicament. There are a number of areas where I find the positioning of policy around the care of these dogs lacking. The first is tying the cost of their care and adoption to the same financial policy that other fees and services sit under. This positioning gives no room to consider or discuss the welfare and well-being of these dogs by councillors or the public. Under this structure, the level of care and importance of rehoming dogs has not been part of the discussion, and pretty much only financial considerations are seen as pertinent or relevant. The current council policy that sets adoption fees for dogs seems to be solely a financial exercise with no room for public consultation or discussion of their well-being. This means there is no way for anyone to be a voice for these dogs. While there is good reason for registering a dog is not the same as a car. They are not inanimate machines, but vulnerable parts of our community and of every other community around the world. Dogs have been part of human society for thousands of years, and with good reason. They are our close companions, our family, and to some, our best friends. How we treat them and position their welfare is a direct reflection on the empathy and culture of our community. If references to the well-being of animals in our community's care is largely missing from Council's conversation on adoption fees, what does this say about the structure of the policies on which their welfare depends? And where is the people of this city's opportunity to have a say or any oversight on the care of these animals? It seems strange to me that while all ratepayers contribute towards the care and well-being of, say, children, elderly, the homeless, sports people, and the provision of arts and culture in Palmerston North, the care of our community's companion animals is not included, which can be seen by the lack of any grants or funding available to animal rescues in Palmy, and the fact that the bulk of this city's animal services are seen as the financial responsibility of dog owners. The main considerations for Council on these animals seems to be how they affect the health and safety of humans and how much of a financial burden these poor souls become when let down by people in this community to find themselves alone and abandoned. In my opinion, a safe and well-connected city is one that has empathy for the animals that live there. Is a safe and healthy community not one where everyone is responsible for the welfare of animals? How does that kind of thinking or policy bode for the health, well-being and culture of a community? It's basically saying, oh well, I don't have animals, so I don't really care how they're treated or what happens to them. But does this really reflect community sentiment? I didn't have animals for many years as I was flatting and couldn't offer a stable home. But that didn't mean that I had zero care for the welfare of animals in my community. It also didn't mean that I begrudged some of my taxes or the rent that paid my landlord's rates going towards their care. The most recent report from Animal Services to Council last October revealed that more than double the usual number of Palmies pound dogs had been euthanised over 2022-23, including ones who had been rehomable. Though one councillor did think to ask how many rehomable dogs had been euthanised, the answer was that this information is not collected. There was then no follow-up request to please record this from now on. Therefore, I would like to please request that this information is in fact collected and included in council reports from now on. To me, the number of rehomable dogs euthanised in the city's pound every year is of huge importance. Is it not one of the main KPIs to show whether the council is doing a good job in this area? Which brings me to the recent decision to raise dog adoption fees to $559, the highest fees which I've been able to find anywhere in the country. If the welfare and lives of this city's rehomable dogs was of importance to this council, it would seem a better move to lower your fees from the most expensive in the country to an amount which is more in alignment with what other councils are doing to help the pound dogs in their communities to find homes. That is why I propose adding the first year of registration into the $425 base cost of adopting a dog from the pound in Palmy. This would bring the Palmerston North City Council more in line with what other councils charge and only cost a nominal amount. Given that around 40 to 50 dogs are adopted each year, the yearly cost for doing this would be around $5,000 to $6,000, an amount that one elected member recently termed a token gesture in terms of raising dog registrations. While I agree such a small amount could be called this in terms of other council costs and spending, it would certainly be more than a token gesture to the dogs that would get a better chance of keeping their lives if this small change were made. Surely rehoming a dog sooner by making it more affordable makes for less cost to councils and cancels out any costs around having them euthanised. In closing, dogs unfortunate enough to end up in the pound often also have had the misfortune of not being well cared for. I think the amount who actually do manage to pass the behaviour tests is a miracle considering how scared and confused they must be and some of the neglect and trauma that many have already been through. For these good boys and good girls to have good people willing to give them a chance is amazing. Especially considering the lack of background knowledge on many, like whether they're okay with cats, children or other dogs, or even sometimes a lack of basics such as toilet training. It's awesome that people are willing to come to the pound to offer a caring forever home to these dogs. So why are we charging them so much to save a Palmy dog's life? So, instead of making it more difficult to reach a positive outcome for both these deserving dogs and their adopters, I ask each elected member to please consider my proposed change to add the first year's registration into the base $425 adoption fee that will be charged from July. I encourage you to bring Palmerston North City Council's efforts to rehome dogs in line with the empathy shown by other councils, and please give Palmies unloved dogs a better chance at life. Thank you.
Kim, thank you very much on behalf of all of us for your submission. I'm going to pass it over to Councillor Wood for questioning. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Kim, for your submission and for your passion. I just wanted to ask, in your research and your travels, are there any councils which just don't charge a fee for adoption, or do all councils charge a fee of some description?
No, they all charge a fee, and I think that's great because you need to prove that you can look after a dog, and having a dog costs money. So having free dogs is actually very dangerous for the dogs.
Okay. So you believe 425 is a fair balance between not too expensive but also not free?
No, I would certainly have it lower.
Okay.
But given what the fees have been raised to, I guess I went for the lowest ballpark possible.
If it was up to you, what would you?
Around 300.
Thank you.
Including registration.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Kim. Very well done. Love your passion. Are you aware that this council tries to recoup the costs and that's why it's so high, obviously?
Yeah, so do other councils, but they are subsidised as a community good,
Yeah.
like playgrounds and lots of other community goods are subsidised.
Yeah, okay. All right. No, I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thank you, Kim. You made an interesting point in your written submission, and you touched on it, that in your opinion, you think that the cost of dog services should be spread out more amongst ratepayers. So, and you likened it to ratepayers paying for children's playgrounds. We do have a policy at the moment that says that, you know, dog owners should pay between this and that. I think it's 80 to 100% of the cost. So have you, you may not know, but do you know, do other councils have similar policies, or are they subsidising more of their dog services from the general rate?
I would assume that they are subsidising, I mean, I don't know actually, but I would assume they would have to be. Our policy, yeah, I only learned about that during the fees and charges discussion.
Okay. Do you think...
No, sorry,
Oh,
we've
all
reached
right.
the time. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Kim. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Kia ora. I'd now like to call up to the table submitter 1040, Central Football. Darren Mason, please. Welcome, Darren and friend. It's good to see you both.
Thank you. So thank you, first of all, for giving us some time this afternoon. And just introduction, so my name's Darren Mason, I'm the CEO of Central Football. This is Donald Piper, who is our operations manager based in Palmerston North. So I won't keep you too long, but I just want to give a little bit of background. Well, actually, first of all, I just an apology from John McGifford as well, who is actually probably known to a number of you and has been leading this project for us for a number of years. He's got an unwell wife, so he's at home looking after her. So just by way of a bit of background, so Central Football are one of 6 federations across the country tasked with delivering football. Our boundaries spread from Gisborne to Rafferty across to Taranaki, so central North Island essentially. We have 17 staff, 5 of whom are based in Palmerston North. We have a membership of about 14,000 players and officials. About 4,000 of those are based in Manawatu. Of those 4,000, they're roughly split into half senior players and half juniors. Our submission for an artificial turf in Manawatu sort of started in about 2015, submitting to the LTP then. As the council will be aware, there was a council-funded artificial sports turf put in at CET Arena in 2020. More recently, Central Football submitted to the LTP in 2021, and since there's been a council-commissioned report from RSL that supports a turf being put in at Massey University. And I guess Central Football have made no secret that that's our preferred location for such a turf. But I would actually add that we are not against it being elsewhere, but the actual council's, the RSL report suggested that having it at Massey was the by far most logical location. So, we remain very much in support of it being there. Since the 2021 LTP, there's been further work done. There's been an MOU done between the council, Massey University and us as Central Football. We've revisited the cost of the project. We did that late in 2023, simply on the basis that we were putting a funding plan together, and we wanted to make sure that what we were funding was still relevant. And we've established a fundraising plan and set a timeline plan in place that would see the turf built in 2026. So our submission today is there's two sort of points to it. One, that the funding that's currently set aside in the council's LTP for a football turf at Massey University be retained for that purpose. And secondly, that the turf is constructed in 2026, preferably. That's obviously still subject to additional funding, but that is the time agreed by the council in the past and obviously supported by Massey and ourselves. Just in a final note, we have sought sort of support from our member clubs and our members across Manawatu for the turf being put at Massey University. We had 319 people reply to that. 312 were in support of it being at Massey University, and 7 were against it. So a pretty decent response, I felt, and certainly a pretty overwhelming support for it being at Massey University. So again, thank you for your time, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Darren and Donald. Just passing it over to Councillor Dennison. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When it came through last time with the MOU, you had the Massey location, but the expectation was that the city was going to pay a lion's share, and it didn't seem like a third. And then second to that, I'd like your comments on the expectation around funding it when, if it was at Massey, it would have to be an operational cost to council as a grant rather than a capital cost if it was on our facility. Can you address both those inquiries around the split of funding and the grant versus capital contribution?
I guess we as a federation are prepared to put money into it, and so are Massey University. So there is a commitment. I can't really speak on behalf of Massey, but I believe it's 150,000 from them, and the same from us. So that's something that we're prepared to fund ourselves, and then we would be, I guess, more than willing to lead the fundraising charge for finding the difference. The discussion around where the funding comes from council in relation to being on Massey, I guess, facilities as opposed to council. Yeah, I mean, I know that's been something that's been discussed in the past. I guess that's not something that we necessarily have an opinion on. I guess that's for you guys as a council to determine whether that's right or not.
Can I understand, Madam Chair, just if it wasn't Massey, where's the next preferable location that you would suggest would be in the city?
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple locations. I guess, you know, there is some suggestion that it should be where the other one is, at CET Arena, so alongside that. That, again, we're not absolutely against that. The council will recall that we've sort of talked in the past about a home of football, so an ability to have an artificial turf alongside multiple grass pitches for the purposes of tournaments and things like that. Yeah, for example, next year, there's a very good indication that we'll get the Premier Boys, Secondary School Boys tournament held in Manawatu. But that's likely to be at Massey because they want it all together at a similar spot. So that's sort of been our rationale, is to try and support a home of football. And I know that, again, has been something that's been talked about multiple times in this forum. But so, yeah, again, that Massey's our preference. But if it needed to be elsewhere, then, you know, we're open to that.
Okay, thank you.
I guess at the end of the day, we want a turf and we need a turf. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen.
Both for coming, that's me, sorry. Thank you both for coming in today. I had some questions. So the submission before yours in the pack is from Marist, and they raised some questions about the turf location at Massey. So I just wanted to check if you're aware of their concerns and what your engagement has been with them.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're one of our biggest clubs, and yes, we're in contact with them. Clearly, we're aware that their preference would be for it to be where their current turf is, so at CET Arena. And yeah, we're certainly aware of their position. I haven't seen their submission to council, but
it's online, you can have a look.
Yeah, I will.
One of the points they made was about the ability to attract national tournaments, and you'll tell me if this is correct, that the requirement for the tournaments is that they need to be held on the same playing surface. So they were questioning how one turf at Massey would enable that.
That's certainly not our understanding. So, for example, this year, previously the National Secondary School Boys Tournament has been held more often than not at Napier at Park Island. It's been moved to Auckland this year, and that's going to be at multiple venues. And multiple services as well. Our understanding would be that the preference for the secondary schools is to have it at one venue, not necessarily on one surface.
Okay.
But yeah, that's our understanding anyway.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Could I ask one more? And they also raise an issue about, they call it conflicts of interest between Central Football and Palmerston North United Football Club. And I wondered if you had a comment on that, that's specifically about the Massey location.
No, we've got staff that are part of Palmerston North United, but we've also got staff that are part of Palmerston North Marist. So I guess that it would be equally the other way in terms of a conflict. I'm not sure what they're referring to there, sorry.
Thank you for answering those for me. That's really helpful in terms of how we weigh those submissions.
And the last questioning will be from Councillor Naylor. Thank you.
Thank you. My questions are similar to Councillor Dennison. Just in regards to the model we have currently in the draft plan does require an $867,000 commitment from council, and you mentioned that you were making $150,000. I'm just wondering what level of negotiation would there be in terms of lifting up the your contribution, or would it be preferable if we had to compromise on the level of funding and have it elsewhere? What would be your preference?
Well, I guess, I mean, we're an MPO, $150,000 is quite a lot of money for us. Again, I can't speak on behalf of Massey, but certainly from our point of view, we're confident that we can, if council are prepared to pay or contribute that 867, that we can find the difference. The project is around about a $2.3 million project, so there is significant fundraising that is required as well. I guess that's, I don't really have an opinion as such as to what council's contribution needs to be, but obviously what we're looking for is what's currently in the LTP to remain.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's the end of our questioning, and really grateful to you both for coming and making the submission. Thank you very much. Can I please invite the President of Manawatu Multicultural Council, Ranjita. Lovely to see you. Thank you.
Here, everyone. Lovely to see you all this evening. And, well, I bring a little bit of an international flavor here. So, thank you for your time. And I'm here on behalf of Manawatu Multicultural Council, and we are basically very grateful to PNCC. You have helped us every step of the way in our journey to, include more communities. And, I came here 20 years ago and to a city of 55,000. And now, this is the longest I've lived anywhere. I've lived in many different countries of this world, America, Europe. And I made Palmerston North my home. And it's just been lovely to see how so many ethnic communities, more than 130 ethnicities in this wonderful global city of ours. It's lovely to see it grow, but with that growth comes the need for bigger grounds for the activities for the communities. I'm sure most of you have come to some of the, council-funded activities that we portray, one being Diwali in the Square. And we have so many, lovely events that we would love to, approach everyone in Palmerston North to come and enjoy, and surrounds, not just Palmerston North. And Diwali was only an example because I hosted. So basically, what I wanted to say was a multicultural hub. That's what we are hoping that council will help us with. We need the bigger grounds because right now we are in Hancock House, which is not large enough for all the events that we want to cater to. And this is a learning hub. It's not just communities coming for just events like just a fun or cultural diversity, portraying their, that brings culture, but it also is a learning hub because we want this to be very inclusive. Everyone should be welcome. We currently at MMC, Manawatu Multicultural Council, we have 63 different communities who are part of our, family, our whānau. So it's just lovely to see that, and we really appreciate what PNCC does for us. And again, we reach out to you for some more help. So if you can help us with leasing a space for this multicultural communities to use for events and activities, we would be so grateful. So yeah, I won't take up too much of your time, but yeah, it was lovely to be given the opportunity to speak here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ranjita. I'm just asking the council if anyone has any questions. Yes, Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Ranjita. Just in terms of where that space might be, I think in consultation, communities had expressed that it was important that it was somewhere central in the city. Is that still, you think, an important aspect for us to consider?
You know, we like to keep an open mind because we know what spaces are available. And the city has grown so much, the space is the same. And city central, I'm in real estate, so I kind of understand how limited we are when it comes to, you know, leasing a big center like that. But we're open to suggestion. I mean, you know, there's no, it's not a hard and fast rule that it has to be, you know, within the square or anything like that. So we're open to suggestion. Happy to work with, you know, whatever we have.
Yes, it's more important to you the size of the space and the facilities. than
Absolutely,
the
because we have
location.
so many things, and it's on a weekly basis, you know, it's not just monthly events. It's, tell you the truth, we could use these facilities every day of the year.
Yeah.
Every day of the year, so, yep.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you. You may have just gotten to the answer to my question at the end of your last answer. Thanks, Ranjit. I was just interested really around kind of what the activation plan would be for MMC going into a substantially larger space than what you're in now.
Yes, and that's exactly what I was talking about. There are so many different communities here. And come on, I come from India, which is, we have 13 festivals in 12 months. So that's just a saying. So every community, you know, will have something or the other going on. And if we get a bigger community center, a hub, I'm sure every day of the week, and we can, you know, help lease it out to, or you know, host these events and help with.
I guess what I'm trying to get to is is whether there's a firm plan in place around how that's going to be done, or whether it's kind of you're wanting to take a trial period and kind of see how it goes, or what's the thought?
We have, as I said, right now, every week we host, you know, because I write the monthly newsletter, so I have absolutely a very good idea of how many events we are holding each month. And from our newsletters, which of course we send to PNCC as well, you will see that we have weekly events, and especially also school holidays and all that. It's not just for ethnic communities. Anybody is welcome. You know, that's the beauty of it. Everyone is welcome. Just like the example I gave of Diwali in the square, everyone is welcome. And that's what I wanted to, you know, stress on, that this is not just for ethnic communities. It is for everyone.
Thank you.
Yep.
Madam Chair.
Councillor Finlay, thank you.
Thank you. You partly already answered my question. Most of the councillors know about the big events, you know, festivals in the square, etc. But talking about the Manawatu Multicultural Centre, during the day, during the week, how many days is it not used, or is it used every day? What sort
It
of
is
things
used
happen?
every day.
What sort of things
That's
happen?
that's the beauty of it. So we have, for example, I'll just give you a weekly picture. Every day we have, and I have volunteered for them myself. We have English learning courses for you know, new migrants here or refugees who have come who are struggling with language. And we have yoga classes. They're all voluntary, but people come. There are mental health help classes, even legal advice given to, you know, people needing legal aid, you know, just to fill up their forms or, you know, whatever anyone needs. We work with other associations as well, like, you know, Women's Refuge or other. So something or the other is always happening. at MMC. And that's the beauty of it, not to mention the monthly potluck dinners we have. You're so welcome, all of you. They're so fun. So yeah, it's not just fun and games, but that's what I wanted to stress. It's a learning, it's a learning hub. And I love the fact that, I came here because of Massey. I did my PhD at Massey, and I always saw it as an educational town, but it's lovely to see it growing as a global community, It's nice that we have so much culture in such a small part of the world, very, very distant from where I came from in the States. It was very big. The university I went to, at that time, the population of that university was 55,000 students, University of Minnesota, and I come to a city where the population is 55,000. And to see it grow. And it's just been a lovely thing. And yes, we do have activities every day.
Thank you.
Ranjita, there are no further questions, so on behalf of us all, thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you so much.
Kia
Thank
ora.
you so much for your time.
Now I'd like to call to the table, if he's here, John. Yes, he is. John, who is submission number 439. Thank you, John, and welcome.
Kia ora. I had some slides prepared. I'm not sure if they came through. No, never mind, the clock's running, so I'll get started. E rangatira whakamana nei I tēnei kaupapa hera hera, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koe.
Ko wai au, who am I? I am a small-scale sheep and beef farmer. I'm also a father of a young family. I'm a military veteran and a university student. If I drove a stock car, I'd represent most of Palmy's demographic, and if I complain about Featherston Street, I'd represent pretty much all of it. Today, which hat am I wearing? I'm here to talk about equity in rates as it applies to small-scale farming operations. Firstly, I'd like to say well done. It's been a long first day listening to these voices, so thank you very much for your time and attention. The first one I want to put out there is just to say I understand costs are increasing and I understand the requirement to increase costs. Expenses have increased as well as the cost of borrowing. What I want to, this room to understand is what you heard here on the 18th of December, and that there was a footnote in the consultation document about the reduction in discount for certain size rural properties being between 0.2 and 5 hectares. This represents a 42% increase in year one of our rates, and I believe this is disproportionate against other rates increases across the city. This was described as a judgment call, and what I'd like to talk about is some of the principles around that. One other thing I'd like to speak about is about the rural amenity. So my property is on a dirt road. We aren't supplied with wastewater services, stormwater services, fresh water. We have no footpath, no sealed road, no cycleways, no street lights, no parking. We don't get rubbish collected, and recycling is not collected from our curbside, and we don't have firefighting water supply at our property. We don't have good access to libraries, bus services, parks, museums, community centres or cemeteries. These are all things that are that would contribute to that level of discount. The other consideration that I'd like to put forward is around level of alternatives that were provided to you as the decision makers for our city. This was the one option that was provided for rural, small-scale rural property owners, and there was nothing else considered. Whether this is fair is a question in terms of the principles that you're applying when you're making this judgment call, whether it's equitable and whether it's proportionate. The other thing that I would like to talk about is timeliness. So I have the opportunity, if I'm lucky, once a year to have my remuneration considered for adjustment. this proposal looks at a massive adjustment up front in year one. So my recommendations here, rather than is to adjust the overall discount to 28%, down from 34%, acknowledging that costs do need to go up, but also to graduate the increase over a period of 3 years. So it's not a 42% increase in year one, it's graduated over the first 3 years of the LTP. That's all I have, and plenty of time for questions, so please let me know if you have any points to discuss. Thank you very much.
Tēnā koe, John. And just to let you know that we haven't appeared to receive yet what you emailed. However, when it does arrive, the Democracy and Governance Manager will send it out to all of the councillors.
Kia ora, thank you.
Thank you. Kia ora. Councillor Bowen. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, John, for your submission and the thought you put into that in sharing it with us today. I wanted to ask you about your submission recommendation. You said you recommend the total discount should be 28% rather than the 17% proposed. And you say in your written submission that that recommendation is based on Three Waters, resource recovery and urban design, accounting for 33.5% of rates. Can you explain to me how those two figures are related?
So those were related to the amenity provided or not provided to rural ratepayers, and that was based on the consultation document highlighting certain percentages being applied as a proportion of your rates bill. So adding those together came up to that total figure.
Okay, thank you. That helps with that one. Thanks for your submission.
Councillor Hancock.
Madam Chair, thanks, John, and in a very similar vein to Councillor Bowen. So the reduction from 34% to 28% over that 3 years, and you said that if it stays at 34, you're going to be paying 42% increase in your rates. Have you extrapolated that over that 3 year period, and can you tell us what that would look like for your rates?
So my particular rates would be increasing $800 in year one. If that was extrapolated out, it'd be don't usually do maths in public, but say $200 or $250 per year, give or take. Yeah.
Okay, I might do my own maths
thanks.
offline. I won't risk it in the chamber. Thanks.
Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, John, for your submission. I was just wondering if before this consultation you were aware of the fact that lifestyle properties did have a discount on rates?
Yes, I was aware of that, and that was on the basis of they didn't receive the full gambit of services provided by the council, which is what I mentioned around things like wastewater, which I need to treat my own wastewater on site, and I bear the expense for that. Same with water collection and water treatment. Every drop of water that I drink is collected and treated by myself at my own expense. So I was aware that there was that discount in place.
So what do you think would be a fair, presumably it's the 28% you've put up, but I guess I'm struggling to try and determine in my own mind what is a fair level of discount for people on a lifestyle block. So did you come up with your 28% just taking into account no Three Waters, no resource recovery and so on, or is it kind of a compromise figure between the 34 and the 17?
So it was looking at the figures that were provided in the consultation document, particularly around the Three Waters, those services that are provided within the urban environment. Mainly on that. The other point, and this is probably not so much to do with your question, is those rural properties that are beyond 5 hectares. Their rates will be less than a lifestyle block, as you say. At which case, they receive potentially, some of them do receive better levels of service at a lower rating level. So it's around that proportionality and that equity across.
Yeah, no, I saw you use that example in your submission. Yes, thank you.
Your Worship, the Mayor.
Kia ora, thanks, John.
and just following along the same lines of questioning as the others, you are aware that Palmerston North had a higher differential or discount than most other, or nearly all other cities. Right, for instance, Wanganui's 20%. We were 37. Were you aware of that?
I didn't look into neighbouring properties, no, or neighbouring councils. No.
So do you think we should perhaps be aligning ourselves a little bit more in that space around those percentages?
Potentially. What I would say is it needs to be specific to our community and specific to our own situation. With any change, you don't, if you're going to boil a frog, you slowly increase the water. You don't throw hot water over it and expect it not to react. So that's why the second part of my recommendation is spreading these increases over a period of time.
Yeah, and that second question was, if something was to happen, you favour a more staged approach than just over 1 year?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Kia ora. We won't have time for another question, but John, ngā mihi ki a koe. Thank you very much for your submission, and we will be deliberating on the 29th and the 30th of May.
Thank you very much.
Kia ora. And now I'd like to call up to the table Tim, who is representing Te Pū Harakeke Community Collective Manawatu. Tēnā koe, Tim, and that is submission number 791. Thank you, Tim.
Tēnā koutou, Deputy Mayor, Mr Mayor and Councillors. Ko Tim Kendra aho, and the submission is on behalf of Te Pū Harakeke Community Collective Manawatu. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Hopefully I will keep this very short. We endorse your long-term plan. We understand the significant work you've already undertaken to ensure that the items in the plan strike the right balance between affordability and providing important services and projects. In general, we don't believe it's prudent to delay important projects to avoid the costs now, and we certainly don't want to see any reduction in services. We support funding for the Multicultural Centre, Pacifica Community Centre, Te Pātikitiki and Te Motua Poutua. Each of these projects will make a significant difference to the community and be valuable resources. We also would be supportive of council assistance to a community services hub in Roslyn that submitters mentioned this morning as we were listening. We endorse the housing plan as it's been proposed and commend the council for your ongoing work in this space, the engagement you've already undertaken with groups in the sector, and your leadership role in coordinating the response to homelessness in the city. And we just want to say keep going. Our big ask for you in this long-term plan, you would have noticed in our written submission, is an increase in funding for the social and community services sector. We're asking for the strategic priority grants and community development small grants to be doubled. We know that's audacious. Community groups have been telling us for a number of years that resourcing or funding is their biggest challenge. That was the finding of the last Social Wellbeing Forum. It's the response every time we ask our members, we survey our members, and it's almost become a cliche for me to sit here and say that. But we haven't asked over the last few annual budgets for an increase because we knew that it was a tough economic time and that everybody was trying to make money go further. And that's the same now, but the need has not gone away. And the groups that we work with, some of them are in dire situations. In particular, groups are struggling to retain and recruit staff to do their important mahi, and funding is the single biggest factor in this, being able to pay staff a competitive wage that will keep them wanting to work in that space. The reality is that to meet the current needs, funding needs to be increased, and then to meet the needs of a growing population, it needs to be increased again. We note that you've put inflation increases in every year, and that's great. But some years that's been less than CPI for community groups, the amounts that they actually get, and that doesn't meet the growing need. So that's all I want to highlight. Happy for questions.
Tēnā koe, Tim, ngā mihi. I've got Councillor Michelad with a question for you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Tim.
Just one question. As I read your submission, you favour the capital value system
Yes.
over the hybrid or the land value system, and you talked about fairness. I think what I've been interested in is wanting to know people's conception of the notion of fairness and that sort of thing, and how you define it.
Yeah, I knew you'd ask this because you asked him earlier today. And my answer is the same, that we think that people that can afford to pay more should pay more. In terms of that capital value, we believe that that is a fairer reflection of the actual value of the asset that people have. And so just, yeah, that's our view.
Councillor Johnson, thank you.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Tim, thank you for your submission. We had a submission earlier today, I don't know if you were in for it, which also the person said that they thought that we should increase community funding as opposed to putting money into bricks and mortar. Now, I know you're supporting the community facilities as well as an increase in community funding, but what's your comment in terms of if we were needing to prioritise, are we better to put more money into community funding or more money into bricks and mortar?
It's a difficult question because obviously within our membership there's going to be a broad range of views, and some of those facilities are going to impact some of our members very specifically. Potentially I would say that the ongoing funding for operational costs will probably have a wider impact. It's going to impact a broader range of groups, but it's a balancing act. I don't think it's one or the other. Yeah.
No, I was just interested to get your view because it's not going to be an easy decision-making process. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Tim. Just wanted to ask regarding your support of the Across Roslyn Community Hub. Just want to understand if that's just you heard it this morning and want to give your support, or if you've actually had some engagement with the organisation around the idea of a community hub prior to today. It's an idea that's been floating around the sector for a little while. So we have been a part of those conversations in the past, but my including it here was because I heard it talked about this morning. No trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bowen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kia ora, Tim. Thank you for your presentation. A question just about your proposed audacious request for community funding to be doubled, but you mentioned in your written submission there's no increase in real terms to what's proposed through this long-term plan, and you talked about the problems of recruitment in the sector. So can you tell us more about how far ahead of the inflationary figures the recruitment problem is running?
I don't really know how to answer that. I think that as it is now, we know of lots of groups that are either looking to reduce their staffing numbers in order to retain the most essential staff. Yeah, I don't know how to compare that to the inflationary budget. I would say that as it is now, where we're increasing just by inflation, groups are having to reduce their staffing numbers or look seriously at that.
You said in your comment there's been no increase in real terms, but I think what I took from what you were saying is actually the funding is going backwards.
Yeah, I think that's because the inflation increases are not keeping up with the actual costs of things. The last financial year, the inflationary adjustment for the strategic priority grants was like 3-point-something% or 4%, but CPI was 7-point-something%. So, that in real terms is not keeping up with the costs. And that's what I mean by that.
Really helpful. Thanks, Tim.
Tēnā koe, Tim. That seems to be the end of the questions, but thank you for your submission on behalf of Te Pū Harakeke, the community collective, and as I'd mentioned to other people who have made the submission, in a fortnight's time we're going to be doing deliberations on the 29th and 30th. Thank you. That brings our session 4 to a close, councillors, and we're having a break. If you could return back here at 6:10 for a start back, and there is refreshments in the